The air in the conference hall was electric, charged with anticipation as thousands of attendees waited for the final session of the Global Tech Summit. It was the kind of event where the world's most brilliant minds converged, and at its center stood the man everyone came to see. Elon Musk, known for his revolutionary ideas, Elon exuded a mix of charisma and enigma that kept the audience hanging onto his every word. The session opened with Elon delivering a keynote speech on humanity's future, a blend of hope, challenge, and his trademark boldness. He spoke of colonizing Mars, artificial intelligence breakthroughs, and the importance of sustainable energy. The crowd was entranced, cameras flashing and phones recording as he shared his vision for a future that seemed straight out of a sci-fi novel. "Now," Elon announced, stepping away from the podium with a smile that hinted at mischief, "I'll take a few questions. Let's hear what you've got." Hands shot up across the room. Some were from journalists eager for a soundbite, others from tech enthusiasts hoping to impress the visionary. The moderator scanned the sea of raised hands, finally pointing to a small figure standing at the back of the hall. A boy no older than 12 stepped forward, clutching the microphone handed to him by an usher. His sandy brown hair fell messily over his forehead, and his oversized hoodie dwarfed his slight frame. Yet his eyes, sharp, confident, and unyielding, immediately drew attention. "Mr. Musk," the boy began, his voice steady despite the enormity of the moment, "you've done a lot for humanity, but with all your resources, why are we still years behind solving energy crises on Earth?" The room fell silent. Elon's smile faltered ever so slightly, and his eyes narrowed in curiosity. This wasn't the kind of question he expected from someone so young. The boy didn't seem nervous or overawed by the crowd or Elon's presence. He simply stood there, waiting for an answer as if he were talking to a classmate rather than one of the world's most influential figures. "What's your name?" Elon asked, his voice calm but intrigued. "Ethan Harper," the boy replied. "Well, Ethan," Elon began, his tone measured, "the energy problem isn't as simple as throwing resources at it. It's about scalability, infrastructure, and adoption. Even the best solutions take time to implement. But time," Ethan interrupted, "is the one thing we don't have. Every year we delay, the planet suffers more. With the amount of capital and influence you have, couldn't you prioritize this above everything else, even Mars?" A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Few dared to question Elon Musk so directly, let alone challenge his priorities. The cameras zoomed in on Ethan's face, broadcasting his piercing gaze to millions watching the live stream. Elon tilted his head, a flicker of admiration crossing his features. "That's a bold statement," he said. "Do you have a solution in mind, or are you just here to criticize?" Ethan didn't flinch. "I do have a solution," he said firmly, "but it's unconventional, and I doubt you'd take it seriously." The audience murmured, a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. Who was this boy, and what could he possibly know that Elon Musk didn't? "Try me," Elon said, leaning forward slightly. His tone was a mix of challenge and encouragement. Ethan hesitated for a moment, glancing at the sea of faces watching him. Then, with a deep breath, he said, "It's a prototype I've been working on, an energy storage system that doesn't rely on traditional batteries. It's efficient, scalable, and eco-friendly. If developed further, it could solve a significant part of the energy crisis." The room erupted in whispers. Ethan's boldness was astounding, but so was his claim. Elon raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. "That's a big idea, Ethan. Do you have anything to back it up?" "I do," Ethan said, "if you're willing to see it." The cliffhanger hung heavy in the air, leaving the audience in suspense. Elon's reply came slowly, deliberately. "All right, Ethan," he said, a small smile returning to his face. "I'll take a look. But if you're going to challenge me, you'd better be ready to prove yourself." As the audience broke into applause, the cameras caught the spark of determination in Ethan's eyes. This wasn't just about proving himself to Elon Musk. It was about something far deeper, a mission that would soon capture the world's attention. What would you do if a 12-year-old challenged the world's biggest innovator? Share your thoughts in the comments. As the applause faded and the summit moved on, Ethan Harper walked out of the conference hall, his heart pounding. He replayed the interaction in his mind. The moment he locked eyes with Elon Musk, the weight of the audience's attention, and Elon's parting words, "You'd better be ready to prove yourself." It felt surreal, yet this was exactly where Ethan had always wanted to be. Ethan's journey to this moment hadn't been easy. Growing up in the small town of Clearwater, Colorado, life was simple, yet far from idyllic. His mother, Diane, worked tirelessly as a nurse to make ends meet after his father abandoned them when Ethan was just a toddler. Their modest house was old but warm, filled with Diane's love and Ethan's endless curiosity. From an early age, it was clear Ethan wasn't like other kids. By the time he was 3, he could read fluently. By 6, he was building rudimentary circuits from scrap electronics Diane brought home from thrift stores. At 8, he devoured college-level physics textbooks borrowed from the town library. His IQ of 162 was a mere footnote compared to his insatiable thirst for knowledge. But brilliance came with its own challenges. At school, Ethan's intellect made him a target. Bullies called him Professor Nobody and mocked his awkwardness. Teachers struggled to keep up with his questions, often dismissing him as disruptive. Despite the taunts, Ethan remained resilient, finding solace in his projects and his mother's unwavering support. Diane was Ethan's anchor, always reminding him that his gifts were meant to make the world better. She had her own dreams once, dreams of becoming an engineer. But those dreams were set aside when she became a single parent. Her sacrifices fueled Ethan's determination to succeed, not just for himself but for her. Ethan's life took a turn when Diane was laid off from her job at Solar Solutions, a renewable energy startup acquired by one of Elon Musk's companies. The company's restructuring left hundreds jobless, including Diane. While she never complained, Ethan saw how the long hours at a new, lower-paying job drained her. He began to connect the dots between systemic inefficiencies and the struggles of everyday people. That was when Ethan became obsessed with renewable energy. He poured every spare moment into researching energy storage solutions, convinced that the key to a better future lay in solving the world's energy crisis. Using salvaged parts and a makeshift lab in the garage, Ethan began experimenting. His project, a prototype for an unconventional energy storage system, became his lifeline. But his ambition didn't go unnoticed. One day, while Ethan was sketching designs in the school cafeteria, a teacher approached him. Mr. Grayson, the science teacher, was one of the few adults who recognized Ethan's potential. "What's this, Ethan?" he asked, pointing to the intricate diagrams on Ethan's notebook. "It's nothing," Ethan mumbled, hesitant to share. "Doesn't look like nothing to me," Mr. Grayson said with a smile. "Why don't you enter the regional science fair? It's a great way to showcase your ideas." Ethan shook his head. "Those things are just popularity contests. No one cares about real solutions." Mr. Grayson's smile faded, replaced by a serious expression. "People won't care unless you make them care, Ethan. You've got something special here. Don't hide it." Those words stuck with Ethan, pushing him to take a leap. He entered the science fair, presenting a preliminary version of his energy storage prototype. To his surprise, he won first place. The recognition was exhilarating, but it also came with a heavy dose of reality. His idea needed resources far beyond his garage to truly make an impact. Ethan began emailing professors, tech companies, and even a few high-profile innovators, including Elon Musk. Most ignored him. A few responded with polite rejections. Yet Ethan didn't give up, determined that one day, someone would take him seriously. When Ethan heard about the Global Tech Summit, he saw it as his chance. Borrowing money from his mother to buy a ticket, he prepared for weeks, researching Elon's work and fine-tuning his pitch. He knew his question would catch Elon off guard, but he also knew it was the only way to get his attention. As Ethan walked home from the summit that evening, he felt the weight of what had just happened. His question wasn't just a challenge to Elon Musk. It was a declaration of his own resolve. Later that night, Ethan sat in his garage, staring at the prototype that had become his obsession. The clunky device looked unremarkable, a mess of wires, metal plates, and circuits. But to Ethan, it represented hope. Hope that he could make a difference, not just for his mother, but for the world. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft creak of the garage door. Diane stepped inside, her face weary but smiling. "How was the summit?" she asked, her voice gentle. Ethan hesitated, unsure how to explain what had just unfolded. "It was interesting," he finally said. Diane raised an eyebrow. "Interesting enough to get you home late?" Ethan grinned sheepishly. "I might have asked Elon Musk a question." Her eyes widened. "You what?" "I told him about the prototype," Ethan admitted, bracing for her reaction. "He said he'd take a look at it." For a moment, Diane said nothing, her expression unreadable. Then, to Ethan's surprise, she hugged him tightly. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was on the brink of something extraordinary. The next morning, Ethan woke to the faint smell of coffee and the hum of Diane's early morning routine. The garage still carried the faint warmth of his late-night tinkering, and his laptop rested open on the workbench, its screen dark from inactivity. Ethan stretched, yawning as sunlight poured in through the small garage window. His mind was still buzzing from the events of the previous evening. Elon Musk said he'd take a look at it. The words played on a loop in his head, a mix of exhilaration and disbelief. As he sat down to check his emails, his phone buzzed violently on the workbench, nearly toppling over. Ethan grabbed it, his eyes widening as he read the caller ID. Private number. He hesitated. Was this another scam call? Or worse, one of the bullies at school playing a prank? His thumb hovered over the answer button for a second longer than it should have. "Hello?" Ethan said, his voice tentative. "Is this Ethan Harper?" A smooth, professional voice on the other end asked. Yeah. Who's asking?" "This is Sarah Klein, executive assistant to Mr. Elon Musk. Mr. Musk asked me to reach out regarding your project." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He sat up straighter, gripping the phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Wait, seriously?" "Yes," Sarah replied, her tone brisk but not unkind. "Mr. Musk was intrigued by your claim at the summit yesterday. He'd like to arrange a meeting to discuss your prototype. Are you available this afternoon for a video call?" Ethan's mind raced. He glanced at his laptop, the prototype beside it, and the mess of notes and tools strewn across the workbench. He barely had the nerve to breathe, let alone speak. "Why, yeah, I'm available," he stammered. "Excellent," Sarah said. "You'll receive a link shortly. The call will take place at 3 p.m. sharp. Please ensure you're prepared to present your prototype and answer Mr. Musk's questions." Before Ethan could say another word, the line went dead. He stared at the phone in his hand, his chest pounding. A meeting with Elon Musk? This was beyond anything he'd imagined. "Mom!" he shouted, bolting into the kitchen. Diane, dressed in scrubs and pouring her coffee, looked up in surprise. "What's wrong?" she asked, alarmed. Ethan could barely contain his excitement. "Elon Musk's assistant just called. He wants to talk to me about the prototype. Today." Diane's mouth fell open, her coffee cup pausing mid-air. "You're joking." "I'm not." Ethan insisted. "The meeting's at 3. I need to get everything ready." For a moment, Diane just stared at him. Then her expression softened into a proud smile. "Well then," she said, setting her coffee down, "you'd better get to work. I'll handle breakfast." Ethan sprinted back to the garage, his brain running at full speed. He quickly scanned the prototype, checking for loose wires or faulty connections. Though the device worked in theory, it was far from polished. Its appearance alone, haphazard and clunky, made Ethan's stomach churn. Would Elon Musk take it seriously? By 2:30 p.m., the garage was transformed into a makeshift presentation room. The cluttered workbench was cleared, the prototype placed front and center, and Ethan's laptop positioned perfectly for the video call. Diane peeked in briefly to give him a thumbs up before heading to work, leaving Ethan alone to face what felt like the most important moment of his life. At precisely 3 p.m., the screen flickered, and the video call connected. Elon Musk appeared on the screen, sitting in a minimalist office with shelves lined with books and models of rockets. His expression was neutral but curious, his sharp eyes scanning Ethan's nervous face. "Ethan Harper," Elon said, his voice steady and authoritative. "Nice to see you again." Ethan swallowed hard, trying to steady his trembling hands. Nice to see you too, Mr. Musk. So, Elon said, leaning slightly forward, I hear you've got something that can change the energy game. Show me what you've got. Ethan exhaled slowly, stepping aside to reveal the prototype. He launched into his explanation, describing the device's unique energy storage mechanism and how it bypassed the limitations of traditional lithium-ion batteries. He spoke with passion, weaving together scientific detail and personal conviction. Elon listened intently, occasionally nodding or jotting down notes. As Ethan finished, Elon leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled under his chin. It's an interesting concept, Elon said finally. You're clearly talented, but there are gaps in your design. Have you considered how this would scale for mass production? Ethan hesitated, his confidence wavering. Not fully, he admitted. I don't have the resources to test it on that level. Elon nodded thoughtfully. The theory is solid, but theory and execution are two very different things. I'll be honest with you, Ethan. Most ideas like this don't make it past the prototype stage. But, he paused, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. You're different. I see potential here. Ethan's breath caught. You do? Yes, Elon said, his tone firm. I want to help you refine this. Send over your schematics and any research you've done. I'll have my team review it. If it holds up, we'll talk about the next steps. Ethan's heart felt like it might burst. Thank you, Mr. Musk. I won't let you down. I hope not, Elon replied, his smile widening. But be ready. This won't be easy. You're stepping into a world where everyone will doubt you, especially someone your age. You'll need to prove yourself at every turn. I'm ready, Ethan said, his voice steady with resolve. The call ended, leaving Ethan staring at the blank screen. His chest heaved as a wave of exhilaration and fear washed over him. This was it, the moment he'd been waiting for. But as Ethan turned back to his prototype, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, and that the road ahead would be far more challenging than he ever imagined. The first 24 hours after the call felt like a whirlwind. Ethan couldn't focus on anything else, not school, not his friends, the few he had, and certainly not his usual late-night internet dives into obscure science forums. His mind was consumed by the challenge ahead, sending Elon Musk's team his research and preparing for the scrutiny of some of the sharpest minds in the world. By the time Diane came home that evening, Ethan had meticulously combed through every note, sketch, and equation he had ever written about his energy storage prototype. His desk was a battlefield of crumpled paper and half-empty coffee mugs he had sneaked from the kitchen. Diane stood in the doorway, taking in the chaos. Ethan, she said gently, you need to take a break. It's almost midnight. I can't, Mom, Ethan replied, not looking up from his laptop. Elon Musk's team is going to rip this apart. I have to make sure everything's perfect. Diane walked over and placed a hand on his shoulder. Perfect doesn't exist, sweetheart. Do your best, but don't forget to breathe. Ethan sighed, nodding reluctantly. He knew she was right, but the pressure was crushing. He couldn't afford to mess this up. Not for himself, not for her. The next morning, Ethan submitted his research packet. The file contained detailed schematics, calculations, and a carefully written summary of his prototype's potential impact. Hitting send felt like jumping off a cliff. There was no turning back now. What Ethan didn't expect was how quickly the challenges would begin. 2 days later, Ethan received an email from Tesla's R&D team. The language was polite but pointed. Ethan, thank you for your submission. We've reviewed your schematics and initial findings. While your concept is innovative, there are several critical issues. 1. Energy density calculations appear overly optimistic. 2. Thermal stability under high load conditions is unproven. 3. Material costs for scalability are not addressed. We suggest revisiting these areas and resubmitting for further review. Regards, Tesla Energy R&D Team. Ethan stared at the screen, the words blurring together. Critical issues. The phrase echoed in his mind like a drumbeat. He leaned back in his chair, the weight of the critique sinking in. Of course, he had expected feedback. No project was perfect, but seeing his work dissected so clinically stung more than he had anticipated. Still, the rejection didn't crush him. If anything, It ignited a fire. "They think I can't figure this out," Ethan muttered to himself. "I'll prove them wrong." Over the next week, Ethan dived deeper into his research. He revisited every calculation, scrutinized his materials, and even reached out to online forums for advice. One of his go-to sites, NextGen Engineers, became a lifeline. There, he posted a simplified version of his problem, hoping someone might point him in the right direction. Most replies were unhelpful, but one stood out, a user named NovaMind, whose responses were shockingly detailed and insightful. NovaMind, your thermal stability issue isn't surprising. Try looking into phase change materials, PCMs, as a buffer. They're not a perfect solution, but they could mitigate heat spikes in your system. Ethan's eyebrows shot up. He hadn't even considered PCMs. He quickly replied, asking for more details, and over the next few days, NovaMind became his unofficial mentor. Ethan didn't know who they were. A retired scientist? A fellow teenager? But their advice was invaluable. While Ethan worked tirelessly in the garage, Diane noticed the strain on him. One evening, she brought him dinner, setting the plate down beside his laptop. "Any progress?" she asked. "Some," Ethan said, not looking up. "But it's slow. Every time I fix one problem, 3 more pop up." "That's how breakthroughs happen," Diane said with a small smile. "One step at a time." Ethan sighed. I don't want to let Elon Musk down. Or you." Diane crouched beside him, tilting his chin up so he'd meet her eyes. "Ethan, you've already made me proud. No matter what happens, remember that, okay?" Her words buoyed him, even if only a little. A week later, Ethan resubmitted his revised research to Tesla. This time, the response came faster, and it was slightly more encouraging. "Ethan, thank you for addressing the previous feedback. While progress has been made, further work is required. We're particularly interested in your proposed PCM integration. Please provide test results demonstrating its effectiveness. Regards, Tesla Energy R&D Team." Ethan grinned. It wasn't a full approval, but it wasn't a rejection either. It was a challenge, and he thrived on challenges. But as Ethan pushed forward, the pressure began to take a toll. Balancing school, his project, and the growing attention from classmates, who had somehow learned about his interaction with Elon Musk, became overwhelming. The bullying, which had simmered down after his science fair win, flared back up. "Hey, genius," one boy sneered as Ethan walked down the hallway. "Did Elon Musk hire you yet? Or are you still playing with toys in your garage?" Ethan ignored the taunt, but it stung. He knew they were jealous, but that didn't make the words hurt any less. Later that day, Mr. Grayson pulled Ethan aside after class. "You've been distracted," the teacher said. "Everything okay?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, just a lot going on." Mr. Grayson studied him for a moment, then said, "Ethan, I've seen students like you before. Brilliant, driven, but sometimes too hard on themselves. Remember, it's okay to ask for help." The words resonated with Ethan more than he cared to admit. As the week drew to a close, Ethan finally tested the PCM integration for his prototype. The results weren't perfect, but they showed promise. With renewed determination, he sent his findings back to Tesla, attaching a note. "I hope this addresses your concerns. If not, I'll keep working until it does. I won't give up." This time, the reply came directly from Elon Musk himself. "Ethan, impressive persistence. Let's discuss next steps." "Elon." Ethan stared at the email, his heart pounding. This wasn't just a step forward, it was a leap. The email from Elon Musk was both exhilarating and terrifying. Ethan reread it at least 10 times, marveling at how the world's most famous innovator had taken the time to personally acknowledge him. But with the excitement came a tidal wave of anxiety. What would Elon expect from him now? What if he wasn't ready? When Diane came into the kitchen that evening, she found Ethan staring blankly at his laptop. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting down a grocery bag. Ethan turned the screen toward her, his voice a mix of awe and dread. "He wants to talk. Elon Musk. He actually emailed me." Diane's face lit up with pride, but she quickly noticed Ethan's tense expression. "That's amazing, honey. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost?" "What if I mess up?" What if he realizes I'm just a kid who got lucky with an idea? Ethan's voice cracked, the weight of imposter syndrome pressing down on him. Diane pulled out a chair and sat across from him. Ethan, listen to me. You've worked hard for this. Elon Musk doesn't waste his time on people who don't have potential. He sees something in you, just like I do. Trust yourself. Her words didn't completely erase his fears, but they gave him the courage to respond to Elon's email. The meeting was scheduled for 2 days later, via a secure video call. Ethan spent hours preparing, rehearsing answers to potential questions, and double-checking his notes. When the day arrived, he sat nervously at his desk, wearing a collared shirt Diane had insisted he put on. The clock ticked closer to 5 p.m., and his palms grew clammy. Finally, the screen flickered to life. There he was, Elon Musk, larger than life even through a webcam. He wore a simple black t-shirt, his expression calm yet piercing. Behind him was a futuristic office filled with whiteboards, models of rockets, and Tesla prototypes. "Hi, Ethan," Elon said, his tone casual yet authoritative. "Nice to finally meet you." Ethan swallowed hard, forcing himself to speak. "Hi, Mr. Musk. Thank you for giving me this opportunity." Elon smiled faintly. "Call me Elon." "So, I've gone through your revised work. It's promising, but we need to talk about some gaps." Ethan nodded, bracing himself for the critique. For the next hour, Elon questioned Ethan about every detail of his prototype. He challenged Ethan's assumptions, poked holes in his calculations, and pointed out flaws Ethan hadn't even considered. At times, it felt like an interrogation, but Elon's tone was never dismissive, only curious and rigorous. Ethan answered as best he could, sometimes stumbling but always recovering. When he didn't know an answer, he admitted it, earning a nod of approval from Elon. "Good," Elon said at one point. "The smartest people admit when they don't know something. That's how they learn." By the end of the call, Ethan felt both drained and exhilarated. Elon leaned back in his chair, studying the boy through the screen. "You've got potential, Ethan," he said. "But potential isn't enough. You'll need resources, mentorship, and a lot more grit to turn this into something real. Are you ready for that?" Ethan's heart raced. "Yes," he said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. "I'm ready." After the call, Ethan collapsed onto his bed, staring at the ceiling. He replayed Elon's words in his mind, particularly the part about mentorship. Did that mean Elon would guide him? The thought was both thrilling and overwhelming. Diane knocked softly on the door and peeked inside. "How did it go?" Ethan sat up, a wide grin spreading across his face. "He said I have potential, Mom, and he wants to help me." Diane's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan. You've worked so hard for this." They hugged, and for the first time in weeks, Ethan felt like he could breathe. The next morning, Ethan received another email, this time from Elon's assistant. It contained a detailed agenda for the next steps. 1. A week-long mentorship program with Tesla engineers. 2. Access to Tesla's labs for prototype testing. 3. A final review with Elon to determine if Tesla would invest in his project. Ethan couldn't believe what he was reading. This was more than he had ever dared to hope for. But with the opportunity came a new wave of pressure. He would be working alongside some of the brightest minds in the world, people who had decades of experience. How could he possibly keep up? As the mentorship program began, Ethan found himself in Tesla's state-of-the-art labs in Palo Alto. Walking through the facility was like stepping into the future. Engineers buzzed around, working on everything from self-driving cars to advanced battery systems. Ethan felt like an ant in a hive of geniuses. His assigned mentor, Dr. Raj Patel, was a senior engineer specializing in energy storage. Raj was sharp but patient, guiding Ethan through the lab's protocols and helping him refine his prototype. "This is impressive for someone your age," Raj said during their first session. "But remember, science isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about asking the right questions." Ethan nodded, scribbling notes as fast as he could. The week was grueling. Ethan worked 12-hour days, running tests, tweaking his design, and absorbing as much as he could from Raj and the other engineers. There were moments of triumph, like when his PCM integration finally stabilized the prototype and moments of frustration, like when a critical component failed during testing. Through it all, Ethan kept Elon's words in mind: potential isn't enough. By the end of the week, Ethan's prototype was ready for its final test. The entire team gathered around as he activated the device. For a tense 5 minutes, the room was silent except for the hum of machinery. Then, the results came in. The energy density was higher than anticipated. The thermal stability held under maximum load. The prototype wasn't perfect, but it was undeniably groundbreaking. Raj clapped him on the back. "Congratulations, Ethan. You've done something remarkable." Ethan couldn't stop smiling. For the first time, he truly believed he belonged here. Later that evening, as Ethan prepared for his final review with Elon, doubt crept back in. What if it wasn't enough? What if Elon still saw him as just a kid with a dream? But then he remembered the journey he'd taken. The setbacks, the late nights, the relentless pursuit of answers. He wasn't just a kid anymore. He was a creator, a problem solver, and someone who refused to give up. Taking a deep breath, Ethan squared his shoulders. It was time to show Elon Musk what he was capable of. The sun was setting over Palo Alto as Ethan stood outside the Tesla headquarters, staring at the sleek glass doors that reflected his anxious expression. Tomorrow, he would present his prototype to Elon Musk. Tonight, he had to make sure everything was flawless. Ethan and Diane were staying at a nearby hotel, and after a quick dinner, he returned to his laptop. His desk was cluttered with notes, equations, and diagrams. The prototype sat on the table beside him, its polished surface gleaming under the room's fluorescent light. He picked it up, turning it over in his hands. It wasn't just a device. It was the embodiment of his sleepless nights, failures, and breakthroughs. That night, Ethan reviewed his presentation until his eyes burned. Diane knocked gently on the door around midnight, bringing him a cup of tea. "You're still up?" she asked, concern etched across her face. "I have to get this right," Ethan replied without looking up. "You've already done more than enough," Diane said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've worked harder than anyone I know, and Elon sees that. He's not expecting perfection, Ethan. He's expecting effort, and you've given that 100 times over." Her words gave him a brief moment of solace, but sleep was elusive. He lay awake, replaying every step of the process, questioning whether he had missed anything. The next morning, Ethan arrived at Tesla's executive conference room. It was an intimidating space, with a long polished table, walls lined with screens, and a glass window overlooking the sprawling campus. Engineers and executives began filing in, each one carrying a laptop or clipboard. Then, Elon Musk entered. The room seemed to shift with his presence. He wore a sharp blazer over a plain black shirt, his gaze sweeping across the room before landing on Ethan. "Good morning, everyone," Elon said. His voice was calm, but his eyes held a sharp focus. "Let's see what Ethan has for us today." Ethan stepped up to the front of the room, plugging in his laptop to the projector. His hands trembled slightly as he clicked through the first slide. "Good morning," he began, his voice wavering before he steadied himself. "Thank you for this opportunity. Today, I'll be presenting my prototype, which aims to significantly improve energy storage efficiency while maintaining thermal stability under high stress." He launched into his explanation, detailing the science behind his design, the challenges he'd faced, and how he'd overcome them. As he spoke, he glanced at Elon, who was leaning back in his chair, his face unreadable. The room remained silent as Ethan finished his presentation. Then came the demonstration. Ethan carefully placed the prototype on the table and connected it to a series of testing instruments. The team of engineers watched closely as the device powered up. For the first minute, everything was smooth. The data streams projected on the screen showed stability across the board. Ethan explained each metric as the graphs updated in real time. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the thermal stability indicators began to spike. Ethan's heart sank. "What's happening here?" Elon asked, his tone sharp but not accusatory. Ethan's mind raced. He had tested this device 100 times. Why now? Taking a deep breath, he analyzed the data. "It looks like an unexpected thermal response due to external interference. Give me one moment." He adjusted the parameters on the console, his fingers flying across the keyboard. The engineers murmured among themselves, some impressed by his composure. Finally, the readings leveled out. Ethan turned back to the room. The anomaly was caused by a calibration mismatch in the external monitoring system, not the device itself. The prototype remained stable. Elon leaned forward, his expression intrigued. "Good recovery," he said. "But tell me, how would this design hold up in a real-world scenario with unpredictable variables?" Ethan smiled faintly, feeling a surge of confidence. "I've accounted for several real-world factors in my simulations, but the next step would be field testing. That's the only way to truly validate its performance." Elon nodded, his eyes gleaming with approval. After the demonstration, the room erupted in discussion. Some executives praised Ethan's ingenuity, while others raised questions about scalability and cost. Ethan answered as many as he could, and for those he couldn't, he promised to find answers. Finally, Elon stood, quieting the room with a single gesture. "Ethan," he said, "you've done impressive work. You've shown not just intelligence, but resilience and adaptability. Those are the traits of a true innovator." Ethan's breath caught. Was this really happening? "I'm willing to invest in further development of your prototype," Elon continued, "but I'll need you to work closely with our engineers to bring it to market. Are you ready for that responsibility?" Ethan felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He glanced at Diane, who was watching from the back of the room with tears in her eyes. "I'm ready," he said firmly. That evening, as they left Tesla headquarters, Diane hugged Ethan tightly. "You did it," she whispered. "You really did it." But Ethan knew this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be even more challenging, but for the first time, he felt like he belonged. Ethan woke up the next morning feeling a mixture of exhilaration and exhaustion. His life had changed overnight. Elon Musk's words still echoed in his mind. "I'm willing to invest in further development of your prototype." It was an offer most people only dreamed of, but now the reality of what it entailed began to sink in. As Ethan sat at the breakfast table in the hotel with Diane, the gravity of his new responsibilities hit him. His mom could sense the tension. "You've got this," Diane said, pouring him a glass of orange juice. "You've already overcome so much to get here. Just take it one step at a time." Ethan nodded, appreciating her support, but his thoughts swirled. He wasn't just a boy with an idea anymore. He was now part of something much bigger. Tesla engineers, investors, and even Elon himself were counting on him to deliver. At Tesla headquarters later that day, Ethan was introduced to a dedicated project team assigned to help him refine and scale his prototype. The team included Raj Patel, the senior engineer who had mentored him during his week in the lab, as well as other experts in energy storage, material science, and manufacturing. "Welcome to the big leagues," Raj said with a grin as they entered a large conference room. The walls were covered with whiteboards and schematics, and the table was already piled with laptops and binders. Ethan's eyes widened as he took in the scene. This wasn't just a side project anymore. This was a full-scale operation. "We'll start by breaking your prototype down to its core components," Raj explained. "Our goal is to optimize the design for real-world applications while maintaining its efficiency. This won't be easy, but with your ideas and our resources, I think we can make something revolutionary." The days that followed were some of the most challenging Ethan had ever faced. The team worked long hours, often late into the night, dissecting every aspect of the prototype. For the first time, Ethan felt the intense pressure of working in a professional environment. Mistakes were no longer just learning opportunities, they were costly setbacks. One day, during a particularly grueling session, an experimental tweak Ethan suggested caused the prototype to overheat, leading to a temporary lab shutdown. Ethan's face burned with embarrassment as alarms blared, and the team scrambled to contain the situation. "It happens to the best of us," Raj said afterward, clapping him on the shoulder. "Just make sure you learn from it. Mistakes are part of innovation." Ethan nodded, but the incident left him shaken. He began questioning his abilities again. Was he really cut out for this? Despite the challenges, progress was being made. The team discovered ways to improve the energy density of Ethan's design without compromising its thermal stability. They also started brainstorming ways to scale the technology for mass production. Elon checked in periodically, reviewing their updates and offering feedback. His presence was both inspiring and intimidating. During one meeting, Elon pointed out a flaw in their cost projections that no one else had noticed. "This is why we test everything," he said, his tone firm but not harsh. "Never assume anything is perfect. There's always room for improvement." Ethan admired Elon's ability to think on such a large scale while still paying attention to the smallest details. He wanted to emulate that kind of focus and discipline. One evening, after a particularly long day in the lab, Ethan sat alone at his desk, staring at his notebook. He felt the weight of expectations bearing down on him. The world was watching, and failure wasn't an option. Diane knocked softly on the door. "Hey, you okay?" Ethan shrugged, not meeting her eyes. "I don't know. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not good enough?" Diane sat down beside him. "Ethan, you've already proven you're capable. Do you think Elon Musk would have invested in you if he didn't believe in you? The only person doubting you right now is yourself." Her words struck a chord. He realized she was right. If he wanted to succeed, he had to stop being his own worst critic and start trusting himself. The next morning, Ethan returned to the lab with renewed determination. He threw himself into the work, asking more questions, taking more risks, and pushing himself harder than ever before. The team noticed the change in his attitude. "You're on fire today," Raj remarked as Ethan proposed a novel solution to a recurring design issue. "I just realized something," Ethan replied. "If I don't believe in myself, no one else will." As the weeks went on, Ethan's confidence grew. The prototype underwent multiple iterations, each one better than the last. The team began preparing for a public demonstration, which would showcase the technology to potential investors and the media. Elon visited the lab one afternoon to review their progress. He examined the latest version of the prototype, nodding thoughtfully as Ethan explained the updates. "This is good," Elon said, his eyes meeting Ethan's. "But good isn't enough. If you want to change the world, it has to be exceptional. Keep pushing." Ethan felt a surge of motivation. He wasn't just building a device, he was building a legacy. That night, Ethan sat in his room, sketching out ideas for the final improvements. He knew the upcoming demonstration would be the most important moment of his life. It wasn't just about impressing Elon or the investors. It was about proving to himself that he could rise to the challenge. As he put the finishing touches on his design, he couldn't help but wonder, would the world be ready for what he had created? The countdown to the public demonstration had officially begun. Ethan had less than a week to finalize his prototype, refine his presentation, and prepare for the most significant moment of his young career. The Tesla lab buzzed with energy, engineers working around the clock to ensure every detail was flawless. For Ethan, the pressure was mounting. He was acutely aware that this wasn't just about his invention anymore. It was about proving that someone his age could stand shoulder to shoulder with the best minds in the world. One morning, as Ethan entered the lab, Raj greeted him with a grim expression. "We've got a problem," Raj said, gesturing to the prototype on the testing table. The energy efficiency rating dropped by 5% during last night's stress test. Ethan's heart sank. They had spent weeks optimizing the design, and now it felt like they were back to square one. What could have caused it? Ethan asked, leaning over the data logs. "We're not sure yet," Raj replied. "It could be an issue with the new materials we're using or a flaw in the calibration. Either way, we need to figure it out fast." Ethan spent the next several hours poring over the data with the team. They ran test after test, each one revealing new variables they hadn't accounted for. Frustration began to seep into the room. "We're running out of time," one engineer muttered. Ethan clenched his fists, refusing to let despair take hold. "We're not giving up," he said firmly. "There has to be a solution. We just haven't found it yet." His determination seemed to rekindle the team's energy. Raj clapped him on the back. "That's the spirit. Let's keep at it." Meanwhile, Elon Musk made an unannounced visit to the lab. He watched quietly as the team worked, his sharp eyes taking in every detail. "How's it going?" Elon finally asked, breaking the silence. Ethan hesitated before answering. "We hit a setback. The efficiency rating dropped, and we're trying to pinpoint why." Elon nodded, his expression unreadable. "Setbacks are inevitable," he said. The question is, how do you respond to them? We're doubling down, Ethan replied confidently. Good, Elon said. Because success doesn't come from avoiding problems, it comes from solving them. Elon's words stuck with Ethan as he worked late into the night. Around midnight, he had a breakthrough. While reviewing the stress test data, he noticed a pattern in the anomalies. They always occurred during a specific phase of the test. It's the thermal regulation module, Ethan murmured to himself. The new material is reacting unpredictably under prolonged stress. He quickly sketched out a potential solution, a redesigned cooling system that would stabilize the temperature without compromising efficiency. The next morning, Ethan presented his idea to the team. This might just work, Raj said, studying the diagram. But implementing it will take time, and we don't have much of that. We'll make it work, Ethan said. We have to. The team sprang into action, fabricating and installing the new cooling system in record time. By the end of the day, they were ready to test it. As the prototype powered up, everyone in the room held their breath. The data streams appeared on the screen, and for the first time in days, the efficiency rating climbed back to its optimal level. The team erupted in cheers. Ethan exhaled deeply, a wave of relief washing over him. You did it, Raj said, grinning. No, Ethan replied, glancing around the room. We did it. With the prototype back on track, Ethan turned his attention to the presentation. He knew the demonstration wasn't just about the technology, it was about the story behind it. Diane helped him craft a narrative that would resonate with the audience. Start with why, she suggested one evening. Why did you create this? What impact do you hope it will have? Ethan nodded, taking notes. I want people to see that innovation isn't limited by age or experience. It's about solving problems and making the world better. The night before the demonstration, Ethan stood in front of a mirror, rehearsing his presentation. He practiced every word, every gesture, until it felt natural. Diane watched from the couch, a proud smile on her face. You're going to knock their socks off, she said. Ethan smiled, but inside, his nerves were building. Tomorrow, everything would be on the line. As he lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, Ethan couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come. Just weeks ago, he had been a boy with an idea. Now, he was about to stand in front of some of the most influential people in the world. What if I fail? He thought. But then he remembered Elon's words. Success doesn't come from avoiding problems. It comes from solving them. With that thought, he drifted off to sleep, ready to face whatever the next day would bring. The day of the demonstration had arrived. The Tesla conference hall was a buzz of activity. Media crews adjusted their cameras, engineers fine-tuned their setups, and an air of anticipation filled the room. Ethan stood backstage, clutching his notebook, trying to calm the storm of emotions inside him. Diane placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You're ready, Ethan. Remember, this isn't about impressing them. It's about sharing your vision. Just be yourself. Ethan nodded, but the butterflies in his stomach didn't subside. Beyond the curtain, he could hear the hum of the crowd. A mix of journalists, investors, and influential figures in tech, all waiting to see what the young prodigy had to offer. Elon Musk stepped onto the stage first, greeted by thunderous applause. He addressed the audience with his signature blend of humor and gravitas. Today, you're about to witness something extraordinary, Elon began. In our pursuit of innovation, we often overlook the untapped potential of youth. But today, we're putting a spotlight on someone who represents the future, a brilliant young mind with an idea that could change the game. The crowd leaned forward in their seats, curiosity piqued. Elon turned toward the backstage entrance. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ethan Reed. The applause was deafening as Ethan walked onto the stage. His heart raced, but he forced himself to focus. He reminded himself of Diane's words, share your vision. Be yourself. Good morning, everyone, Ethan began. His voice steady despite the lump in his throat. A few months ago, I was just a kid tinkering with ideas in my garage. I never imagined I'd be here, standing in front of all of you, sharing something that I believe has the potential to make a difference. He paused, letting his words sink in. But innovation isn't about age or experience. It's about seeing a problem and being determined to solve it. Ethan transitioned into his presentation, explaining the core principles behind his prototype. The audience listened intently as he broke down complex scientific concepts into relatable analogies. "This isn't just a battery," Ethan said, gesturing to the sleek device on the table beside him. "It's a step toward a future where clean energy is accessible, efficient, and sustainable for everyone." He demonstrated the prototype in action, powering a model electric vehicle and a miniature grid system. The room erupted in applause as the data displayed on the screens exceeded expectations. During the Q&A session, Ethan faced tough questions from the audience. Investors wanted to know about scalability and cost efficiency. Scientists asked about potential limitations. Ethan answered each question thoughtfully, showcasing not only his intelligence, but also his humility. One journalist raised a hand. "Ethan, how do you handle the pressure of being so young in such a competitive industry?" Ethan smiled. "Honestly, it's overwhelming sometimes. But I've learned that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you're willing to learn from them. And I'm lucky to have incredible support from my mom, my mentors, and now this amazing team at Tesla." The sincerity in his voice resonated with the audience, and the applause that followed was louder than ever. Backstage after the presentation, Ethan finally exhaled. Diane rushed over and hugged him tightly. "You were amazing," she said, beaming. Raj and the Tesla engineers joined in, congratulating him on a job well done. Even Elon appeared, his face breaking into a rare smile. "You nailed it," Elon said. "But this is just the beginning. The real work starts now." Ethan grinned. "I'm ready for it." That evening, as they returned to the hotel, Ethan's phone buzzed with messages of congratulations. Social media was ablaze with clips from the presentation, with hashtags like #YoungGenius and #FutureOfInnovation trending worldwide. Ethan scrolled through the comments, overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. But one message stood out. It was from his old-school principal, who had once doubted his abilities. "Ethan, I was wrong about you. You've proven that determination and creativity can overcome any obstacle. Congratulations." Ethan smiled. He had come a long way, but he knew this was only the beginning of his journey. As he lay in bed that night, Ethan reflected on the day. The applause, the questions, the recognition. It was all surreal. But what mattered most to him was the chance to inspire others. "If I can do it, so can they," he thought. Before drifting off to sleep, Ethan made a silent promise to himself. To keep pushing boundaries, to keep learning, and to never stop believing in the power of a single idea. The aftermath of Ethan's demonstration reverberated far beyond the walls of Tesla's conference hall. What had started as a young boy's dream to create something meaningful had turned into a global sensation. News outlets and social media platforms buzzed with stories about the teenage genius whose invention might change the course of the future. At the Tesla headquarters, Ethan found himself thrust into a whirlwind of meetings, interviews, and calls from investors eager to back his project. But despite the recognition, Ethan remained grounded. His focus was still on perfecting the prototype and ensuring that his invention could live up to the hype. Diane noticed the subtle change in him. He was no longer the wide-eyed kid with a dream. He was now a young inventor, a leader. Still, he hadn't lost his humility, and that was something she admired. "You're handling all of this well," she said one evening as they walked through the bustling Tesla campus. "But don't forget why you started in the first place." Ethan smiled. "I won't. I've come this far, but I know the real challenge is still ahead. I need to make sure this technology works on a larger scale, that it's truly sustainable and accessible." Elon Musk had become a quiet mentor to Ethan throughout the past week. The two spent hours discussing everything from energy technology to the future of space travel. Elon's vision for the future resonated with Ethan, and he found himself inspired by the idea that they could be part of something bigger than themselves. "There's a lot of pressure on you now," Elon had said during one of their conversations. "But remember, the best innovators aren't the ones who avoid risk. They're the ones who embrace it." Ethan had taken those words to heart, but he knew the pressure was only going to increase as the days passed. The world was watching, waiting to see if the young prodigy could live up to his potential. In the days that followed, the team began working tirelessly to scale up the prototype. They experimented with new materials, refined the energy output, and tested its limits under various conditions. Ethan was in the thick of it, learning more about the intricacies of engineering and sustainability than he had ever imagined. But even as the prototype improved, challenges arose. One evening, while testing the new design, the system suddenly malfunctioned, sparking an unexpected electrical surge. The team quickly shut it down, but the incident left everyone shaken. "We're pushing it too hard," Raj said, staring at the damaged circuits. "This new design has potential, but it's not stable enough yet." Ethan's heart sank. What if this was the end of the road? But he quickly steeled himself. "No," he said, determination flashing in his eyes. "We'll fix it. We need to figure out what went wrong and make it better." The next day, Elon arrived at the lab for an impromptu visit. After hearing about the malfunction, he asked to see the prototype. "Here's the thing," Elon said, examining the system with his characteristic intensity. "Failure is just a stepping stone to success. But what separates the successful from the rest is the ability to pivot, to find new solutions when things don't go as planned." At the Tesla headquarters, Ethan found himself thrust into a whirlwind of meetings, interviews, and calls from investors eager to back his project. But despite the recognition, Ethan remained grounded. His focus was still on perfecting the prototype and ensuring that his invention could live up to the hype. Diane noticed the subtle change in him. He was no longer the wide-eyed kid with a dream. He was now a young inventor, a leader. Still, he hadn't lost his humility, and that was something she admired. "You're handling all of this well," she said one evening as they walked through the bustling Tesla campus. "But don't forget why you started in the first place." Ethan smiled. "I won't. I've come this far, but I know the real challenge is still ahead. I need to make sure this technology works on a larger scale, that it's truly sustainable and accessible." Elon Musk had become a quiet mentor to Ethan throughout the past week. The two spent hours discussing everything from energy technology to the future of space travel. Elon's vision for the future resonated with Ethan, and he found himself inspired by the idea that they could be part of something bigger than themselves. "There's a lot of pressure on you now," Elon had said during one of their conversations. "But remember, the best innovators aren't the ones who avoid risk. They're the ones who embrace it." Ethan had taken those words to heart, but he knew the pressure was only going to increase as the days passed. The world was watching, waiting to see if the young prodigy could live up to his potential. In the days that followed, the team began working tirelessly to scale up the prototype. They experimented with new materials, refined the energy output, and tested its limits under various conditions. Ethan was in the thick of it, learning more about the intricacies of engineering and sustainability than he had ever imagined. But even as the prototype improved, challenges arose. One evening, while testing the new design, the system suddenly malfunctioned, sparking an unexpected electrical surge. The team quickly shut it down, but the incident left everyone shaken. "We're pushing it too hard," Raj said, staring at the damaged circuits. "This new design has potential, but it's not stable enough yet." Ethan's heart sank. What if this was the end of the road? But he quickly steeled himself. "No," he said, determination flashing in his eyes. "We'll fix it. We need to figure out what went wrong and make it better." The next day, Elon arrived at the lab for an impromptu visit. After hearing about the malfunction, he asked to see the prototype. "Here's the thing," Elon said, examining the system with his characteristic intensity. "Failure is just a stepping stone to success. But what separates the successful from the rest is the ability to pivot, to find new solutions when things don't go as planned." Ethan looked at Elon, feeling both inspired and overwhelmed by the weight of his words. "So, you think we can still fix this?" Elon smiled. "Absolutely. The problem isn't in the idea, it's in the execution. And we're going to get it right." For the next few days, the team worked in overdrive. Ethan stayed up late, collaborating with engineers and reviewing the data, trying to identify the root cause of the malfunction. After hours of brainstorming and trial and error, they discovered a small flaw in the energy regulation system, which had caused the surge. Once they fixed the issue, they conducted a series of tests, and this time, everything worked perfectly. The prototype not only performed efficiently, but it also exceeded their expectations in terms of stability. As the weeks went by, the excitement surrounding Ethan's invention grew. Investors and tech giants showed increasing interest, but Ethan remained focused on the technology itself. He knew that in order to make the impact he wanted, he needed to ensure that the product was both revolutionary and practical. One afternoon, while taking a break in the Tesla cafeteria, Diane sat down across from him. "You're handling this all so well," she said, watching him as he fiddled with his notebook. "But I know you've been under a lot of pressure. Don't forget to take care of yourself." Ethan chuckled. "It's hard to think about anything else when I'm so close to making a difference." "That's exactly it," Diane replied. "But you can't pour from an empty cup. Don't burn yourself out." Ethan nodded, appreciating her concern. He realized she was right. For the first time in weeks, he decided to take a day off, an afternoon spent walking through a park, reconnecting with the world outside of the lab. As Ethan walked through the quiet park, he thought about the future. The idea of taking his technology to the next level, of seeing it change the world, was still his ultimate goal. But now, he understood that it wasn't just about inventing something new. It was about being part of a movement toward a more sustainable, innovative, and inclusive future. As he stood on the edge of the pond, watching the ducks glide by, he felt a renewed sense of clarity. He had the vision, the team, and the resources. Now, it was time to take the next step. "The future is waiting," he thought, "and I'm ready for it." Ethan had always been an optimist. He had learned to embrace the obstacles in his path, viewing each as an opportunity to learn and grow. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen next. A few days after the success of the prototype, Elon called Ethan into his office. The room was quiet, with a panoramic view of the Tesla factory sprawling out below them. Elon was at his desk, looking over a set of blueprints when Ethan entered. He looked up with a serious expression. "Ethan, we've reached a critical point," Elon said, motioning for Ethan to sit. "We've got the prototype working, but now we need to prove that this technology can scale." Ethan sat down, feeling the weight of the conversation. "What does that mean?" Elon leaned back in his chair. "It means we need to put your technology through a series of real-world tests. It's one thing to show that it works in a controlled environment, but the real challenge is proving it can handle the demands of the world outside." Ethan nodded, understanding the magnitude of what Elon was suggesting. The world was about to test him, not just as a young inventor, but as someone who could change the future of energy. The team worked day and night to prepare for the tests. They had to ensure that the prototype could handle extreme weather conditions, high energy consumption, and the wear and tear of everyday use. They also had to demonstrate that it could be safely integrated into existing systems. Ethan felt the pressure building. Every test, every decision seemed to carry the potential for success or failure. But he knew that this was the moment he had been working toward for so long. On the day of the first test, Ethan and the team traveled to a remote location, an area with unpredictable weather and terrain that would truly put the prototype to the test. It was a calm, overcast morning when they arrived, but the forecast predicted heavy storms later in the day. It was the perfect environment to test the system's durability. Ethan stood next to Elon, Raj, and Diane as the test began. The prototype was hooked up to a series of vehicles and energy grids designed to simulate real-world applications. The team watched nervously as the test began. At first, everything went smoothly. The prototype powered the vehicles efficiently, and the energy grids seemed to be running as expected. But as the storm clouds gathered overhead, the tension in the air thickened. The winds picked up, and the first drops of rain began to fall. Then, as if on cue, the prototype started to flicker. The lights on the energy grid blinked. Ethan's heart dropped. "No, not now," he thought. Raj immediately sprang into action, analyzing the data. "There's a surge in the system," he said. "The storm is causing an unexpected fluctuation in the power supply." Ethan's mind raced. This was a crucial test. They had designed the prototype to handle extreme conditions, but this was something they hadn't fully anticipated. The rain poured down harder, and the wind howled through the trees. The prototype systems began to overload. The vehicles lost power. The grid shorted out. The situation was spiraling out of control. Ethan turned to Elon, who was watching the chaos unfold. He could see the concern in Elon's eyes, but there was no panic, just focused determination. "Now's the time to test everything we've learned," Elon said calmly. "We're not giving up yet." Ethan knew what Elon meant. This was a moment to innovate under pressure. The team scrambled to assess the damage and adjust the system to compensate for the storm's effects. Raj and Diane worked quickly to reroute the energy flow, while Elon and Ethan worked on recalibrating the prototype sensors. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, they managed to stabilize the system. The lights flickered back on, the vehicles roared to life, and the energy grid hummed with efficiency. The storm continued to rage outside, but inside the testing area, everything was working as it should. The team erupted into cheers, but Ethan's mind was still racing. They had made it through this test, but it had been a close call. This was only one obstacle in a long line of challenges they still had to face. As they packed up to leave, Elon turned to Ethan. "You did well," he said. "This is exactly what innovation looks like. You've got the smarts, the resilience, and the drive. But remember, the journey is far from over." This test was just the first of many. Ethan nodded, but his mind was already on the next hurdle. The real test wasn't just about overcoming obstacles. It was about turning every failure into an opportunity to succeed. Back at Tesla's headquarters, the media was abuzz with the news of the successful test. Headlines across the globe read, "Young genius proves prototype can weather the storm." The social media buzz was louder than ever, with people commenting on Ethan's resilience and innovation. But despite the accolades, Ethan knew that the hardest part was still ahead. Scaling this technology for global use, ensuring that it could meet the demands of entire cities, nations, and industries, that would be the true measure of success. As he sat at his desk later that evening, Ethan felt a mix of exhaustion and excitement. The test had proven that his technology had potential, but he couldn't afford to rest on his laurels. There was more work to do, more challenges to overcome. But for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt a quiet confidence. He had come this far, and now, nothing could stop him from seeing his vision come to life. After the successful test, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The prototype had proven itself under extreme conditions, but the journey ahead was still filled with uncertainty. As the world began to take notice, the stakes grew higher. Tesla's headquarters was buzzing with activity. Investors were clamoring to get a piece of Ethan's technology, while competitors began to take note of the young inventor's work. In the midst of the excitement, Ethan found himself facing a new challenge: maintaining his focus. The attention was flattering, but it was also overwhelming. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone had an idea of how things should go. From investors pushing for faster timelines to engineers suggesting changes to the prototype's design. The pressure mounted with each passing day. Ethan found solace in the late hours of the night, when the building was quiet and the only sound was the hum of machines and his own thoughts. He'd sit at his desk, looking over blueprints and calculations, trying to clear his mind. But even then, the weight of his responsibilities loomed over him. One evening, Diane found him in the lab, surrounded by sketches and notes. "Ethan," she said softly, "you need to take a break. You've been working nonstop for weeks." Ethan looked up, his eyes tired but determined. "I can't afford to stop now. This is bigger than me." "I know," Diane replied, her tone gentle but firm, "but you can't pour from an empty cup. You're burning yourself out." Ethan sighed and leaned back in his chair, staring at the wall. She was right. The constant pressure, the expectations, it was starting to take its toll. But he couldn't allow himself to slow down, not when so much was at stake. The next day, Ethan was pulled into a meeting with Tesla's board of directors. The room was filled with some of the most powerful people in the industry, and Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of anxiety as he sat at the head of the table. Elon was there, as were several key investors who had been following the progress of the prototype. The air was thick with tension, and Ethan knew that this was the moment where his vision would either be embraced or rejected. "Ethan," one of the investors began, his voice calm but authoritative. "We've been impressed with the progress you've made, but the market is changing. We need to accelerate the timeline if we're going to stay ahead of the competition. We're talking about global deployment, not just a few pilot tests." Ethan's heart raced. He had always believed in the potential of his technology, but the idea of pushing it out to the world so quickly made him nervous. It wasn't just about building something great, It was about ensuring that it was ready to handle the complexities of real-world use. "We need more time," Ethan said, his voice steady but firm. "Rushing it could lead to failures, and I'm not willing to sacrifice quality for speed." The room fell silent. For a moment, Ethan feared that his stance would be seen as weakness. But then, Elon spoke. "Ethan's right," Elon said, his voice unwavering. "We've never rushed anything at Tesla. Innovation takes time. But we also need to be prepared for the challenges that come with scaling up." The board members exchanged glances, clearly weighing the decision. Finally, one of the investors spoke up. "Fine," he said, clearly dissatisfied. "But we need a plan, and we need it now. We can't afford to wait much longer." As the meeting came to a close, Ethan felt a sense of relief. He had stood his ground, but he knew that the real battle was still ahead. The pressure to deliver was intensifying, and the clock was ticking. Would his technology be able to handle the demands of global implementation? Could he continue to innovate under this kind of pressure? Over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly to refine the prototype. They addressed the concerns raised by the board, making adjustments to the system's scalability and efficiency. But with each adjustment, new challenges emerged. It seemed that for every problem they solved, two more appeared. Ethan found himself constantly battling doubts. What if we're not ready? What if the technology isn't as foolproof as I thought? One night, as he sat alone in the lab, Elon came in, a cup of coffee in hand. He sat down beside Ethan, who was hunched over his desk, looking at the data with a furrowed brow. "Still burning the midnight oil?" Elon asked, his tone light. Ethan sighed. "I'm not sure how much longer we can keep this up. The pressure is intense, and every time we fix one problem, another one pops up. I'm starting to wonder if we're truly ready for this." Elon's expression softened. "You're not alone in this, Ethan. You're building something that has the potential to change the world. But remember, no one gets it right the first time. It's all about persistence. You're not just solving problems, you're learning how to solve them faster and smarter." Ethan looked at Elon, the weight of his words sinking in. "But what if I make a mistake? What if it all falls apart?" Elon smiled. "Then you'll learn from it and keep going. The best innovators fail more times than they succeed, but it's the persistence that gets them through. Trust yourself. You've already come this far." The next day, Ethan returned to the lab with a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but he was ready to face it. With Elon's encouragement and his own determination, he felt more prepared than ever. But as the days passed, something unexpected happened. The competition grew fiercer. A new player in the energy sector, backed by a billionaire rival, had begun to push a similar technology, and their prototype was showing impressive results. It was clear that the race for global energy dominance was heating up. As the clock ticked down and the pressure mounted, Ethan knew that this would be the defining moment of his career. The question was, would he be able to rise to the occasion, or would the weight of the challenge prove too much? Ethan couldn't sleep. His mind raced as the challenges piled up. Just when he thought he had made progress, a new competitor entered the arena, and with them, a direct threat to everything he had worked for. Ethan stared at the ceiling of his hotel room, the glow of the streetlights casting shadows against the walls. The stress, the weight of it all, felt unbearable at times. The news had spread like wildfire. A rival company, led by billionaire tech mogul Henry Caldwell, had just unveiled their own energy-saving prototype. The headlines were everywhere. Caldwell's company unveils energy system that rivals Tesla's innovation. The reports showed footage of their prototype working flawlessly in tests. The technology looked almost identical to Ethan's, yet somehow, it seemed to perform better under pressure, a claim that was now making waves across the media. Ethan sat up in bed, his hands gripping the sheets. He couldn't afford to be distracted by this, but the fact that someone else was doing exactly what he was doing made him feel exposed. Henry Caldwell was a well-known figure, a self-made billionaire who had already disrupted multiple industries. His entry into the energy space was no accident. The next morning, Ethan met with Elon and the rest of the team in the boardroom. The tension was palpable. Everyone had been watching the news, and there was a sense of urgency in the air. "We need to address this head-on," Elon said, pacing in front of the whiteboard. "Writing down key points?" Caldwell's prototype is a direct competitor to ours, and if it's true that their technology is performing better, we could be in trouble. We need to find out exactly how their system works, and if there's any way we can improve ours. Ethan looked at Elon, the reality of the situation sinking in. We can't afford to sit back and let them outpace us. We need to accelerate our timeline, but we can't sacrifice quality in the process. Elon turned to Ethan. Right. We'll keep pushing forward, but we need to step up our game. We're going to need a plan to outsmart them, not just out-innovate them. Over the next few days, the team worked in overdrive. They ran new simulations, explored every possible configuration, and pushed the limits of the technology they had developed. The pressure to perform, to deliver something that would exceed expectations, was immense. Ethan could feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders, but he had no choice but to keep moving forward. Meanwhile, the competition intensified. Henry Caldwell's company wasn't just pushing out new technology, they were using the media to their advantage. Their marketing campaign was sleek, polished, and far more aggressive than Tesla's ever had been. Every week, new updates and teasers from Caldwell's company flooded the news, promising better efficiency and lower costs. The public was buying into it. One day, Ethan sat in his office, staring at the prototype, a mixture of frustration and determination swirling inside him. He knew that the race was on, but what could he do to ensure that Tesla's version stood out? What made their technology superior? As the days passed, Ethan started feeling the cracks in the system. Despite his best efforts, the technical issues with scaling the prototype still hadn't been resolved. The team couldn't seem to iron out every flaw, and time was running out. Meanwhile, Caldwell's team seemed to be moving effortlessly toward the finish line. Their product looked polished, market-ready. Late one night, Elon called Ethan into his office. "I need to talk to you," Elon said, his voice serious. Ethan sat down, trying to hide his exhaustion. "What's up?" "I've been thinking about this a lot," Elon continued. "I know we're under a lot of pressure, but we need to dig deeper. We need to go beyond just creating a better prototype. We need a breakthrough, something that's going to make everyone stand up and take notice." Ethan's mind raced. "What are you suggesting?" "I think it's time for something bold," Elon said, his eyes locking onto Ethan's. "Let's think outside the box. We need to leverage the one thing Caldwell's team doesn't have: your mind, your creativity. You need to innovate at a level they can't match." Ethan knew what Elon was saying. It was time to take risks, to push the boundaries of what was possible. Ethan had already proven that he could create a functioning prototype, but now he needed to think about the bigger picture. It wasn't enough to just be competitive. He needed to think bigger. Much bigger. "Let's reimagine the way the system works," Elon said, his voice growing more animated. "Let's take this beyond energy storage. Let's make it something more than just a technological innovation. Let's make it the future of sustainable living." Ethan felt a spark of inspiration. What if we integrate this with a new energy source? Something no one has even thought of yet? Elon nodded. "Exactly. Now you're thinking." The next few days were a blur of activity. Ethan, with the help of Raj, Diane, and the rest of the team, began conceptualizing a revolutionary new addition to their energy system. They weren't just going to settle for improving the prototype, they were going to make it a game-changer. The new approach would integrate renewable energy sources with a decentralized grid system, something that would make Caldwell's company's tech look outdated in comparison. The team worked tirelessly, reworking the system's core design, testing new ideas, and refining concepts that had once seemed impossible. Ethan could feel the excitement building again. This wasn't just about beating the competition anymore. It was about revolutionizing the way the world thought about energy. As the days turned into weeks, the new system began to take shape. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. Ethan's heart swelled with pride as he watched his vision come to life. They were no longer chasing Caldwell, they were forging a new path altogether. But just as they were nearing completion, another bombshell hit. Caldwell's company had announced a partnership with a major government organization, one that would help bring their technology to the global stage. The race had just gotten a whole lot more complicated. Now, more than ever, the stakes were clear. Ethan was no longer just fighting for success. He was fighting to shape the future of the planet. Ethan stood in front of the mirror, his reflection showing a man on the brink of a decision that could change everything. The past few days had been a whirlwind of intense pressure and innovation, and now, as the final prototype neared completion, everything hung in the balance. His heart pounded as he looked at his reflection, thinking about the challenges ahead. The announcement of Caldwell's partnership with a major government organization had sent shockwaves through the industry. The media coverage was relentless, and it seemed as though Caldwell's company had an unstoppable momentum. With their new backing, it would only be a matter of time before their technology would reach every corner of the globe. For a moment, it felt like Tesla's place at the forefront of the energy revolution was slipping away. But there was no turning back now. Ethan's new system was almost ready to be unveiled, and with it came a new level of risk, an enormous gamble. His decision to integrate renewable energy sources and decentralized grids was bold, visionary even, but it was also untested. He knew there was a chance that this innovation could either change everything or completely backfire. As he walked into the conference room, Ethan could feel the weight of everyone's expectations. Elon, Raj, Diane, and the rest of the team were already gathered around the table. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. "We've come a long way," Elon said, his voice steady but serious. "But now, it's time to make a decision. Do we move forward with this new prototype, or do we pull back and refine it further?" Ethan took a deep breath. "We move forward. We can't afford to sit back and wait for the perfect solution. We need to show the world that we're ready to lead the way, not follow Caldwell." Raj nodded, his face lined with concern but determination. "I agree, but this will be the biggest gamble we've ever taken. We're not just up against a competitor anymore. We're up against an entire system, an entire industry that's been built to push us out. It's a risk, but if we don't take it, someone else will." Elon turned to look at Ethan. "What's your gut feeling, Ethan? Is this the right move?" Ethan paused. The truth was, he didn't know. The risk was colossal, but so was the potential reward. "I believe in it. I believe in the technology, and I believe in our team. If we want to change the world, we have to take risks." The decision was made. The team would move forward with the new prototype, unveiling it to the world in just a few days. The stakes had never been higher. Ethan could feel the pressure mounting with each passing hour. This wasn't just about beating Caldwell anymore. It was about showing the world that they could push the boundaries of innovation, that Tesla was still the future. On the day of the reveal, the media frenzy was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The world was watching, and Ethan could feel the weight of their eyes upon him. The room was filled with reporters, tech analysts, and influencers, all waiting to see what Tesla had in store. The buzz was palpable. Elon stood beside him, his usual confidence and energy providing some comfort. "Ready for this?" Elon asked, flashing him a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Ethan nodded, his nerves simmering beneath the surface. "Ready as I'll ever be." The lights dimmed, and the crowd fell silent. On the giant screen in front of them, Tesla's new prototype came to life. The system was sleek, powerful, and undeniably innovative. The renewable energy sources seamlessly integrated with the decentralized grid, creating a self-sustaining network that could power entire cities with minimal environmental impact. The room exploded with applause, but Ethan's mind was elsewhere. He couldn't let his guard down. The true test was coming. The real battle had only just begun. As the press conference continued, Ethan kept a close eye on the reactions. The journalists seemed impressed, their questions coming fast and furious. But it was Caldwell's team that was lurking in the background, preparing their own countermove. Ethan knew they were already working on something big, something that would make their announcement seem almost insignificant. Later that evening, after the event had ended, Ethan sat alone in his office, reviewing the media coverage. He could feel the excitement of the reveal, but the pressure was still there, gnawing at him. Would the world embrace this new direction? Would it be enough to outpace Caldwell's machine? As he stared at the screen, an email popped up in his inbox. It was from Raj. The subject line simply read, "Urgent. We need to talk." Ethan's stomach dropped. What now? He immediately picked up the phone and called Raj. The conversation that followed sent a chill down his spine. "We've just received word," Raj said, his voice tight with urgency. Caldwell is launching something of their own next week. It's going to be their answer to our prototype. And from what we've heard, it's going to be bigger, more powerful, and possibly more efficient than ours. Ethan's mind raced. How is that possible? We've tested everything thoroughly. There's no way they could have developed something that fast. Raj sighed. We don't know yet, but it's happening. We need to prepare for the next move. Caldwell isn't going to let this go without a fight. Ethan hung up the phone, his mind spinning. The stakes had just gotten even higher. The world was watching, but so was Caldwell. The true test of Tesla's future was just beginning, and this time, it was all or nothing. How would you handle the pressure if your ideas were at the forefront of a global race? Would you be willing to take the ultimate gamble, knowing that your entire future rested on it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The next few days felt like a blur. Each morning, Ethan woke with a sense of urgency, his mind already turning over the latest challenges. Caldwell's looming counterattack, combined with the pressure to perfect Tesla's new energy system, made sleep a distant memory. Each moment felt like a ticking clock, counting down to something massive and possibly catastrophic. Tesla's media team worked overtime to keep the buzz surrounding the new prototype alive. Headlines flashed across news outlets. Tesla unveils energy system that could change the world. Analysts and experts praised the groundbreaking innovation, but beneath the praise was a looming threat. Everyone knew Caldwell's team wouldn't sit idle for long. They would strike back, and when they did, it would be fierce. Ethan sat in his office, staring at the prototypes laid out in front of him. The technology they had developed was impressive, but in the back of his mind, he couldn't stop thinking about the competition. Caldwell had deep pockets, political connections, and a level of influence that Tesla couldn't ignore. Elon had been quiet in the past few days, his usual exuberance replaced by a somber resolve. It was clear that he understood the gravity of the situation. He had built Tesla to be a leader in clean energy, but now they were faced with a direct rival, a force that seemed ready to tear through their progress. In the midst of all this, Ethan knew that there was one thing they could not afford: complacency. Tesla needed to stay ahead of the curve, not just in terms of technology, but in terms of vision. He couldn't help but feel that the new system, impressive as it was, still lacked something. It was good, but it wasn't the leap forward that they needed. They needed something revolutionary, something that would make Caldwell's best efforts look trivial. Late one night, as the office grew quieter, Elon called Ethan into his personal office. The air was thick with tension as Ethan stepped inside. Elon stood by the window, looking out over the city skyline, his face illuminated by the faint glow of the lights below. "We need to do more," Elon said without turning around. Ethan nodded, already anticipating the weight of what was to come. "I agree. But Caldwell's team is already working on something massive. They're not going to wait around." "I'm not talking about just keeping up," Elon said, his voice steady. "I'm talking about changing the game. We need to push the boundaries, Ethan. I know it sounds risky, but sometimes, we need to risk everything to win." The words hung in the air, heavy and inevitable. Elon was right. Tesla wasn't in a position to simply compete. They had to out-innovate the competition, break new ground in a way that no one saw coming. Ethan felt a wave of clarity wash over him. The new prototype was good, but it wasn't enough. They needed to go further, faster. The renewable energy sector was crowded with great ideas, but none of them had the power to change the game entirely, not in the way Tesla had always done. "If we're going to do this, we need to go all in," Ethan said, his voice filled with determination. "We need to create a system that doesn't just work for us, it works for everyone. We need to make it accessible, scalable, and efficient. We need a product that can power entire countries, not just a few cities." Elon turned to him, a flicker of excitement in his eyes. "Exactly. Think bigger. Think about the future. A product that doesn't just serve a market, it creates a market." The following days were a whirlwind of brainstorming, late-night meetings, and calculations. The team went back to the drawing board, examining every aspect of their current prototype. The decision to take a leap forward wasn't an easy one. It would require every ounce of creativity, ingenuity, and sacrifice they had. Ethan worked closely with Raj and Diane, mapping out the new vision. They envisioned a system that could be integrated into every home, every building, every power grid. It would be affordable, efficient, and easy to implement on a global scale. But the challenge was enormous. They needed to think about materials, scalability, and logistics. It was a massive undertaking, but if anyone could pull it off, it was this team. Meanwhile, news of Caldwell's forthcoming launch continued to make headlines. The whispers in the tech world grew louder, and the pressure only intensified. Ethan could feel it in his bones. Caldwell was about to release something that would change everything. They were playing to win, just as Tesla had always done. But now, it felt like the stakes had risen to an unprecedented level. One evening, as the team gathered to review the latest simulations, an unexpected visitor arrived at Tesla's headquarters. The security team buzzed Ethan's phone, telling him that someone wanted to speak with him urgently. "Who is it?" Ethan asked, his mind already racing. "It's Henry Caldwell," the guard replied. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Caldwell, the man who had become both a rival and a symbol of the threat Tesla was facing, was standing outside the building. "I'll see him," Ethan said, his voice steady. As he made his way to the entrance, he wondered what Caldwell's sudden appearance meant. Was it an offer to collaborate, or was it the beginning of a confrontation? When Ethan reached the lobby, Caldwell was standing there, his usual confident, almost smug demeanor on full display. He extended a hand with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Ethan," Caldwell said smoothly, "it's been a while. I thought it was time we talked." Ethan hesitated for a moment before shaking his hand. "What brings you here?" Caldwell smiled, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Let's just say, I think we both know that the race is about to get a lot more interesting, and I wanted to make sure you were aware of that." As Caldwell spoke, Ethan's mind raced. The competition was intensifying, and now, this visit felt like a warning. Caldwell was no longer just a rival. He was a force that would stop at nothing to dominate the energy sector. Ethan stood in the lobby, the weight of Caldwell's presence sinking in. The rivalry had always been fierce, but this felt different. Caldwell wasn't here just to gloat about his upcoming launch. He had a message, and Ethan could sense it. "You're not here just for a friendly chat, are you?" Ethan asked, his voice sharp as he gestured for Caldwell to follow him into the conference room. Caldwell smirked. "Ethan, you're an intelligent man. I think you already know why I'm here. I've been watching Tesla, watching you, and I have to admit, I'm impressed. But I'm also here to make sure you understand something." Ethan raised an eyebrow, sitting across from him. "And what's that?" Caldwell leaned back, his fingers steepled. "That we're not just competitors anymore. We're playing for the future, and I plan to win." The words hung in the air, cold and calculated. Ethan's heart pounded, but he kept his composure. This wasn't the first time Caldwell had made bold statements, but it was the first time Ethan truly felt the weight behind them. Caldwell wasn't just trying to beat Tesla. He was trying to reshape the world in his image. "You're making it personal," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "Tesla isn't about ego. We're building the future." "Oh, I'm aware," Caldwell said, his grin widening. "And that's precisely why I'm here. You and your revolutionary energy systems. You're trying to change the world, and I respect that. But there's a difference between change and chaos." Ethan's jaw clenched. Caldwell's words weren't just an attack on Tesla's vision. They were an attempt to undermine everything Tesla had worked for. Ethan wasn't about to let him succeed. "So what is it you want?" Ethan asked, leaning forward. Caldwell's eyes glinted with something cold and calculating. "I want to offer you a deal. Tesla and Caldwell Technologies, together. We combine our resources, our expertise, and together we lead the charge in global energy. Think about it, Ethan. This could change everything. No more competition. No more fighting for market share. You and I, we could reshape the future." The proposal sounded tempting on the surface. Tesla's resources and Caldwell's influence could indeed create something world-changing. But Ethan wasn't fooled. "I don't play those games, Caldwell," Ethan said, his voice unwavering. "We don't sacrifice our values for power. Tesla isn't just about profits or market share. It's about creating something better for everyone, not just the elites." Caldwell's smile faltered for a moment, but his eyes remained cold. That's a shame. You could have been part of something much bigger. But I suppose you'll learn the hard way. You'll see the consequences of playing in a world you don't understand. And when that day comes, don't say I didn't warn you. Ethan stood, signaling the end of the conversation. I think we're done here. If you have anything more to offer, you'll need to make it official through the proper channels. But I won't be taking your deal. Caldwell stood as well, brushing off his jacket as he glanced around the room. Remember my words, Ethan. The world isn't kind to those who refuse to adapt. It's only a matter of time before you realize you've made a huge mistake. With that, Caldwell turned and walked out, leaving a cold silence in his wake. Ethan's mind was spinning. Caldwell's presence felt like a warning shot, an attempt to shake him, to make him doubt his course. But it had the opposite effect. Ethan had always known that Tesla's mission wasn't going to be easy. But after today, there was no turning back. If anything, Caldwell's attempt to manipulate him only reaffirmed his belief in the path Tesla was on. That night, as the team gathered to review the latest updates on Tesla's system, Ethan couldn't help but reflect on Caldwell's words. Would the world accept Tesla's vision? Would they stand firm, or would they bow to the weight of power and influence that Caldwell represented? But he knew one thing for sure. Tesla's purpose was clear. They were building a system for everyone, not just the elite. And no matter how many threats or offers Caldwell made, Ethan wasn't going to stop now. The next morning, as Ethan arrived at the office, a sense of urgency settled over him. The media was buzzing with the latest headlines about Caldwell's latest press release. Caldwell Technologies partners with global energy giants to revolutionize the market was plastered across every news outlet. It was the first of many steps in Caldwell's plan to solidify his grip on the global energy market. Ethan couldn't ignore the challenge. Caldwell was playing to win, and he wouldn't back down easily. But Ethan had something Caldwell didn't. A team of passionate, driven people who believed in Tesla's mission. They weren't in this for fame or fortune. They were in it to change the world. And that, Ethan knew, was Tesla's greatest strength. As he walked into the conference room, the team was already deep in discussion. "We need to move fast," Raj said, his voice filled with urgency. "Caldwell's going to push hard, but we can't let them dictate the pace. We've got the technology, and we've got the vision. We just need to execute, and execute fast." Ethan nodded. The time for hesitation was over. Tesla's next move had to be swift, bold, and undeniable. There would be no more looking over their shoulders at Caldwell. They had their eyes set on the future, and nothing was going to derail them. As the meeting wrapped up, Elon pulled Ethan aside. "We're going to need everything we've got," Elon said, his voice serious. "This isn't just about innovation anymore. It's about survival. Tesla's future depends on this. And so does the future of the planet." Ethan understood the gravity of the situation. The clock was ticking. They couldn't afford to slow down, not for a moment. Caldwell's move had been bold, but Tesla's response would be even bolder. The pressure was mounting. Ethan couldn't escape the weight of Caldwell's challenge. It wasn't just about business anymore. It was about proving that Tesla's mission could thrive, even against the odds. Caldwell wasn't just after market domination. He wanted to rewrite the rules. But Tesla had something Caldwell didn't, a soul. And that made all the difference. Ethan walked through the lab that morning, his thoughts a whirlwind of uncertainty and resolve. Tesla had always been about innovation, about pushing the boundaries of what was possible. But with Caldwell's shadow looming larger every day, the stakes were higher than ever. Elon was at the center of the team, as always. The engineers were working on a new set of prototypes for the solar grid, one that could power entire cities with just a fraction of the current energy consumption. The concept was brilliant, if they could pull it off. "You're thinking about Caldwell again, aren't you?" Elon's voice cut through Ethan's thoughts. Ethan didn't bother to hide it. "He's not letting up. I can feel the pressure mounting. And I'm worried that his influence is starting to seep into every corner of this industry." Elon nodded thoughtfully, his eyes scanning the blueprints laid out on the table. "Caldwell's a master at playing the game. But the problem is, he's playing the wrong game. He's building a future where people like him win. But Tesla is about something different. We're not building for the elite. We're building for the world." Ethan's heart lifted at Elon's words. It was easy to get caught up in the immediate battles, the media coverage, the corporate schemes. But in the end, Tesla wasn't just about competition. It was about creating a world where anyone, anywhere, could thrive. And if they lost sight of that, they would lose everything. So what's the plan? Ethan asked, his voice filled with determination. Elon turned to face him, his usual calm demeanor giving way to a rare intensity. We need to make a statement. Something big. Something that shows we're not just playing by the rules, we're changing the game. We'll roll out our next major innovation, and we won't just compete in the market. We'll disrupt it. We'll push the boundaries, and we'll do it in a way that no one can ignore. Ethan nodded, the adrenaline surging through his veins. This is it. This was the moment to prove that Tesla wasn't just a company. It was a movement. But the question remained. Would the world see it that way? Would they embrace Tesla's vision? Or would Caldwell's power play force them to fall in line with his version of the future? As the team worked tirelessly in the coming days, the pressure only increased. Caldwell's influence was undeniable. His press conferences were filled with promises of a cleaner, more efficient future. His strategy was simple: sell the dream, promise the future, and dominate the media. Tesla had always been about substance. But now, they needed to back up their promises with something bold, something that would get the world's attention. The answer came one late night, when the team discovered a breakthrough in their solar technology. It wasn't just an incremental improvement, it was a leap. They had figured out how to capture and store solar energy more efficiently than ever before, with an innovative new system that could revolutionize energy grids worldwide. This is it, Raj said, his voice full of awe as he looked at the data. If we can make this work, we won't just change the energy sector, we'll change the world. Ethan stared at the numbers in disbelief. This wasn't just another incremental advancement, it was a game changer. And it was exactly what they needed to counter Caldwell's media blitz. But as the excitement started to build, a darker thought crossed Ethan's mind. The technology was amazing, but it was also risky. They couldn't afford to make a mistake. Not now. The stakes had never been higher. The next morning, as the team gathered for their daily briefing, Elon stood at the front, the weight of the moment sinking in. This is our shot. We're not just creating the future, we're defining it. But we need to be sure. We need to test this system in real-world conditions, and we need to do it quickly. Ethan looked around the room at his team. They were all in. No hesitation, no second-guessing. They were ready to risk it all, for the sake of the future. As the test began, Ethan's nerves were on edge. The new system had to work. There could be no failure. He watched the data streaming in, his mind racing. Every test, every failure, every adjustment had led to this moment. They had come too far to let it slip through their fingers. And then, with a sudden surge of energy, the system powered up. The lights in the room flickered, and the data on the screens confirmed it. The system was working. Not just working, it was exceeding expectations. Cheers erupted around the room, and for the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a sense of relief wash over him. Tesla had done it. They had just taken a giant leap forward, and there was no going back. But as the celebrations began, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Caldwell wasn't going to stand by and let them win. The battle for the future was far from over. And in that moment, as Ethan looked out over the team, he realized something. This wasn't just about technology. It was about the people, about creating a future where everyone had access to the energy they needed, regardless of who they were or where they came from. The ripple effect had already begun. Now, it was time to make sure it spread far and wide. The world was starting to take notice. Tesla's breakthrough in solar energy was making waves across the tech and energy sectors. But just as the excitement from their success began to settle in, another storm began to brew on the horizon. Ethan woke up to a flood of messages. The headlines screamed at him from every direction. Tesla's new solar system could revolutionize energy, but will it ever see the light of day? Caldwell fires back. Tesla's solar dreams are a flawed fantasy. He grabbed his phone, his stomach sinking. Caldwell was launching a full-scale attack. His media empire had already started to cast doubt on Tesla's success, claiming that their new system was untested, unreliable, and too risky for widespread adoption. Elon had warned them. He'd known Caldwell wouldn't go down without a fight. But this was different. Caldwell wasn't just throwing out accusations. He was playing dirty. As Ethan scrolled through the barrage of negative press, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The media was already framing Tesla as the underdog, the dreamer with a flawed product, while Caldwell's empire was positioned as the safe, practical solution. He called Elon. Elon, this isn't just about energy anymore. It's a full-blown PR war. Caldwell's already controlling the narrative, Ethan said, his voice tight with frustration. Elon's voice was calm, unwavering. I've seen it coming. Caldwell's playing the long game. He's trying to force us into a corner. But that's exactly where he's making his mistake. People want change. They don't want to be stuck in his world of endless profit and control. We're here to break that cycle. But even as Elon spoke with confidence, Ethan knew that words alone wouldn't win this fight. They needed action. They needed something bold, something that would silence the doubters and turn the tide in their favor. Ethan spent the next few days in a whirlwind of meetings, strategizing with the team on how to combat Caldwell's assault. They needed to take back control of the narrative. In the end, it was Raj who came up with the solution. Why don't we bring the fight to him? We don't just need to defend our technology, we need to prove it, live. Let's host a global broadcast, showing the world our solar grid in action. Let's go head-to-head with Caldwell, show them that we have nothing to hide. Ethan's eyes lit up. You're right. If we can demonstrate the system in real time, showing the world exactly how it works, no filters, no spin, then we win. We make them see what Tesla is really about. The decision was made. Tesla would hold a live demonstration of their solar grid, broadcasting it to millions of viewers worldwide. The stakes were higher than ever, and there was no turning back. As the days counted down to the event, the pressure only intensified. Caldwell's camp launched new attack ads, using every weapon at their disposal to discredit Tesla's innovation. The narrative was spinning out of control, and the media was lapping it up. Ethan stood in front of a large screen in the Tesla war room, watching the latest news cycle. The coverage was relentless. The question everyone is asking, is Tesla's solar system just another pipe dream, or will it really change the world? A reporter said, her voice dripping with skepticism. In that moment, Ethan realized just how much was riding on this. Tesla had always prided itself on its integrity and vision, but now, those values were being tested. The day of the demonstration arrived, and the tension in the Tesla headquarters was palpable. Elon addressed the team before the event. His usual calm was replaced by an intensity that couldn't be ignored. This is our moment. We've come too far to back down now. We're not just fighting for Tesla. We're fighting for a future where innovation serves the people, not the powerful. Ethan stood backstage as the countdown to the live broadcast began. His heart was racing. The moment was finally here. The stage was set. The cameras were rolling. The world was watching. Elon took center stage, standing beside the massive solar grid they had worked tirelessly to perfect. The screen behind him displayed real-time data, showcasing the efficiency and power of the new system. This is not just a technology, Elon said, his voice steady but passionate. This is a solution. This is the future of energy, clean, sustainable, and available to everyone. Today, you'll see for yourselves what Tesla is capable of. The demonstration began. The solar grid powered up, and within moments, the lights in the building flickered as they were fed by the new system. The data displayed on the screen was flawless. The efficiency was far beyond even Tesla's own expectations. But just as the team began to breathe a sigh of relief, the broadcast was interrupted. The screen blinked, and then it cut to black. Panic surged through the team. What happened? Raj shouted, rushing to the control room. But it wasn't just the tech that had failed. The broadcast had been hijacked. On the screen, Caldwell's face appeared, smiling smugly. Ladies and gentlemen, Caldwell's voice echoed through the speakers. What you've just witnessed is nothing but a cleverly staged performance. Tesla's so-called breakthrough is a farce. And here's why. The room fell silent. Ethan's heart dropped. The fight was far from over. As Caldwell launched into his counterattack, making wild claims about Tesla's technology, Ethan felt a familiar sense of resolve. This wasn't just about technology. It was about integrity, about standing up for what was right. The fight for the future had entered a new phase. There would be no easy victory. But they had made their move. Now, it was time to see who would come out on top. The hijacking of the broadcast was a wake-up call. Tesla's breakthrough moment had been overshadowed by Caldwell's ruthless tactics, and the world was left wondering, was it all just a mirage? Had Tesla's innovation been nothing more than a well-timed publicity stunt? Ethan sat in the conference room, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. The media was buzzing with Caldwell's accusations, and Tesla's credibility was on the line. They couldn't afford to let this moment slip away. Not when they were so close. Elon paced back and forth, his mind clearly at work. The calm, visionary leader everyone knew had shifted into a man on a mission. His hands were clasped behind his back, and his eyes were fixed on the future. We need to turn this around, fast. Caldwell thinks he can control the narrative, but he's forgetting one thing. People don't just follow the loudest voice. They follow the truth. Ethan nodded, still absorbing the weight of what had happened. But Caldwell just made it personal. He's calling us out, attacking everything we stand for. If we don't respond, it could be the end. Elon paused, meeting Ethan's gaze. That's exactly why we will respond. We're not just going to defend ourselves, we're going to challenge him. We'll show the world that we're not afraid of him, and more importantly, we'll prove that our solar technology is the future. Raj entered the room, holding up a tablet. We're already getting pressure from our investors. They're concerned, and the media coverage isn't helping. If we don't act now, Caldwell will win by default. Elon didn't flinch. Then let's make them see what we're really capable of. The decision was made. Tesla would hold a second live demonstration, one that wouldn't just showcase their solar system. It would prove the technology's potential beyond any shadow of a doubt. The plan was risky, but it was the only way to regain the narrative. It was time to go on the offensive. For the next few days, the team worked around the clock, preparing for the demonstration. But this time, the stakes were higher. Tesla needed to show not just that their solar grid worked, but that it could operate in the real world under extreme conditions. Ethan watched the team preparing the system for its next test. We need to make sure this works perfectly. No room for error this time. If we mess this up, we're done. Raj clapped him on the shoulder, offering a small, reassuring smile. It's going to work. We've got this. As the day of the demonstration approached, Elon was as determined as ever. But there was a palpable tension in the air. This wasn't just about proving their technology. It was about proving to the world that Tesla wasn't going to be bullied by Caldwell or anyone else. The live broadcast was set for prime time, a strategic decision to reach as many viewers as possible. The world was watching, and it was time to show them the truth. When the camera started rolling, Elon was calm but intense, standing in front of the newly upgraded solar grid. The sun was setting behind him, casting a golden glow over the setup. He spoke directly to the camera. Today, we're not just demonstrating a product. We're demonstrating a future. A future where energy isn't controlled by a few, but is available to all. Where the power of the sun is harnessed to fuel the world, cleanly, efficiently, and sustainably. The team had made sure everything was perfect. As the solar grid powered up, the surrounding buildings began to light up, powered entirely by Tesla's new system. Data streamed across the screens, showing real-time performance, 98% efficiency. The system wasn't just functioning, it was exceeding expectations. But this time, there was more. The system was designed to work in extreme environments, something Caldwell had repeatedly claimed was impossible. The test included a series of conditions that mimicked the most challenging weather scenarios: high winds, low light, and temperature fluctuations. Tesla was not just proving their product's potential, they were silencing every doubt in real time. As the broadcast continued, the data spoke for itself. The system performed flawlessly, even under the most extreme conditions. The world was witnessing the future of energy unfold before their eyes. But just as the final test was about to wrap up, a familiar interruption occurred. The screen flickered, and once again, Caldwell's face appeared. This time, his expression was colder, more calculated. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you're seeing here is a show," Caldwell said with a sly smile. Tesla's so-called breakthrough is nothing more than a well-produced illusion. They've gamed the system, manipulated the data. They're hoping you'll buy into their fantasy. The camera zoomed out, revealing Caldwell standing in front of his own energy grid, a perfectly manufactured, controlled environment where everything looked pristine. Now, this, Caldwell said, gesturing to the immaculate setup, this is real. This is reliable. Tesla's dream is exactly that, just a dream. The room fell silent as the team watched in disbelief. Caldwell was trying to throw them off course once again, but this time, Tesla was ready. Elon took a deep breath and stepped forward. His calm voice echoed through the broadcast. Caldwell is right about one thing. This is a show, but not in the way he thinks. This is a show about what's possible. It's not perfect. It's not polished, but it's real, and it's the future. The data on the screen shifted again, revealing more than just Tesla's system. It showcased the network of communities already tapping into Tesla's technology, areas where the solar grid was making a difference in the lives of everyday people. You see, what Caldwell doesn't understand is that it's not about the perfect product, Elon continued. It's about impact. It's about creating a system that works for the many, not the few. And we will keep fighting for that future, no matter what. Ethan watched the camera feed, knowing that they had just turned the tide. Caldwell's smug expression faltered as the true power of Tesla's vision began to shine through. The world was starting to see past the smoke and mirrors. The broadcast ended, and the room was filled with a mix of anticipation and relief. They had done it. They had fought back. The fight for the future had reached a turning point, but the battle was far from over. Caldwell would not give up easily. The days following Tesla's broadcast were filled with tension. While the world's media praised Elon's bold response to Caldwell's accusations, the battle wasn't won yet. Caldwell was far from backing down. Instead of accepting defeat, he doubled down, using every media outlet at his disposal to question Tesla's legitimacy. Elon knew that Caldwell's next move would be a game-changer, but he had no idea what it would be. Caldwell was a master of manipulation and strategy. He'd find a way to make Tesla's win seem like a fluke. Elon gathered his closest team for a private meeting. Caldwell won't stop, Elon said, pacing across the room. We're playing his game now, and I don't like it. We need to stay ahead, anticipate his next move. Ethan, who had been closely following Caldwell's media campaign, leaned forward. He's not just attacking us anymore. He's attacking everything we stand for. His ads, his social media posts, they're targeting the people, painting us as the enemy of progress. Raj nodded. He's trying to create a divide. He wants to convince the public that Tesla's vision isn't the solution, that it's some kind of dangerous gamble. We're being portrayed as the underdog again. Elon's eyes narrowed. Let him. It's always been about more than just technology. It's about trust. And if we can show the world that Tesla is committed to a better future, then no matter what Caldwell says, we'll win. But trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. The team knew that the challenge was far greater than they'd expected. Public perception was fragile, and with Caldwell's influence spreading like wildfire, it felt like they were constantly playing catch-up. That night, as the city lights twinkled below him, Elon sat alone in his office. His mind raced through every possibility. What would Caldwell do next? How far would he go to tear Tesla down? He didn't have the answers, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let this fight slip away. The answer came to him the next day. Elon gathered the team again, but this time, he wasn't just looking for a way to defend. He was preparing for offense. I've been thinking, Elon said, his voice steady. We can't keep playing defense against Caldwell. We need to go on the attack. But this time, we do it quietly. We don't fight him head-to-head on social media or in the news. We fight him where it matters most, by showing, not telling. Ethan raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Elon smiled, a gleam of determination in his eyes. We're going to put our technology in the hands of the people who need it most. We're going to give them the power to prove Caldwell wrong. We'll focus on the real-world impact of our solar grid, how it's transforming communities. We'll let them speak for us. Raj immediately saw the potential. You're saying we let the results do the talking. We show the world how Tesla's technology is improving lives, not through flashy commercials, but through real stories. Elon nodded. Exactly. No more debates. No more fighting for headlines. We show the world the truth. We'll let Caldwell keep shouting. While he's making noise, we'll be changing lives. And so, Tesla launched its most ambitious initiative yet. They partnered with several underdeveloped communities, offering them access to Tesla's solar grid system. These were communities that had been struggling with unreliable energy sources, where access to electricity was a luxury rather than a given. Tesla's technology would give them something more than just power. It would give them hope. The first community to receive the solar system was a small town in Northern California. The residents, many of whom lived without consistent power, couldn't believe it when the Tesla trucks pulled into their town. They had heard the news of Tesla's achievements, but to see it in action, well, it was almost too much to believe. The installation began in the early morning, and by evening, the community was lit up with bright, clean energy. The residents gathered outside, marveling at the transformation. Children played outside as their families celebrated a future that had seemed impossible only hours earlier. For the first time, the town felt the warmth of electricity without the fear of outages. They could power homes, hospitals, schools, anything they needed. It was a quiet revolution, one that didn't require flashy displays or media attention. It was the change that spoke for itself. Tesla followed suit, moving into several other communities. Each time, the impact was immediate. People who had once struggled in the dark were now empowered, and they were eager to share their stories. As word spread, it wasn't just about a new product, it was about a movement. Meanwhile, Caldwell was still fighting his battle in the media, but his words were starting to fall on deaf ears. His attacks on Tesla's credibility seemed less and less relevant compared to the real-world results Tesla was delivering. And what Caldwell hadn't anticipated was how the stories from these communities would spread. Ethan received a call one evening that changed everything. "You won't believe this," he said, staring at his phone. "The White House is reaching out. They want to discuss Tesla's work in these communities. They're seeing the change we're making." The call from the White House was a sign that Tesla's quiet revolution was gaining momentum. And for the first time in weeks, Elon allowed himself to smile. Tesla had fought back, not with words, but with action. They had shown the world that they were more than just a company. They were a force for change. And while Caldwell may have tried to make them the enemy, Tesla had become the hero. As the sun set on another day of progress, Elon looked out over the city once more. He knew this fight was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, the future felt bright. The success of Tesla's initiative to power underserved communities had spread far beyond what Elon and his team had anticipated. The White House meeting was only the beginning. As Tesla's influence grew, Caldwell's campaign against them seemed to be losing its steam. But Caldwell was not the type of man to admit defeat easily. He had an army of media moguls and political influencers at his disposal, and he wasn't about to let a few solar panels and glowing testimonies stop him. It wasn't long before Caldwell took his battle to the next level. The media began to shift their narrative. Instead of focusing solely on attacking Tesla's technology, Caldwell started raising questions about the ethics behind it. He claimed that Tesla was using poor communities as lab rats to experiment with their unproven technology. He pushed the idea that the rapid installation of solar grids was done in haste, and it wasn't really a humanitarian act, it was a PR stunt. Elon knew this was coming. He had anticipated that Caldwell would find a way to twist the story, but this time, the accusations felt different. They were no longer just about the technology. They were about the intentions behind it. Tesla was no longer just being criticized for its products. It was being attacked for its very purpose. Elon stood in the conference room, his team gathered around him. His mind was racing with strategies. This wasn't just about damage control anymore. Caldwell had hit at the core of what Tesla was, a company that believed in changing the world for the better. Caldwell's latest move is clever, Raj said, rubbing his temples. He's questioning the ethics behind our entire mission. And it's working. People are starting to wonder if we're really helping these communities or just using them for good PR. We need to shut that narrative down, Elon said, his voice firm. We can't let them twist our mission into something it's not. We need to make it clear that our intentions are pure. We could do another press conference, Ethan suggested, but it seems like we're playing defense. We need to do something bigger, something that shows Caldwell that we can't be silenced. Elon nodded. It's time to put all the cards on the table. We'll take a page out of Caldwell's playbook. We'll take this fight straight to him. For the first time in weeks, Elon made the decision to go public with something the company had been keeping secret. Tesla had been working on a breakthrough in sustainable energy, a new, ultra-efficient battery that could revolutionize the entire energy sector. The launch of this new technology would not only prove that Tesla was a leader in the field, but also send a powerful message to Caldwell. Tesla wasn't just surviving. It was thriving, and it was on the cusp of something even bigger. The announcement came a few days later, during a televised global conference. Elon stood at the podium, his eyes scanning the audience. The world was watching, and Caldwell was among the first to tweet his criticism. Tesla's new technology is just another gimmick. It will fail just like the rest. Elon took a deep breath, but his confidence was unwavering. Today, I'm proud to announce the next step in our journey toward a sustainable future. This new battery is not just a game changer. It's a revolution. It will allow us to store and distribute clean energy more efficiently than ever before. It's not just for the privileged. It's for everyone. It's for the communities that have been neglected for decades. It's for the future. As Elon spoke, the reaction from the media was immediate. The buzz surrounding Tesla's new technology was electric, and for the first time in a long while, the narrative around the company shifted. Instead of questioning Tesla's motives, people were beginning to see the bigger picture. But just as Elon thought the battle was finally swinging in Tesla's favor, Caldwell made his move. He released a statement, one that would go down in history as the most controversial moment of the entire ordeal. It was a challenge, a direct confrontation to Elon Musk. Caldwell announced a new venture, one that would rival Tesla's ambitions. A company he called Helios, designed to provide an alternative to Tesla's energy solutions. His message was clear. It's time to put an end to the Tesla monopoly. Helios will bring energy independence to the world, but not at the cost of the vulnerable. The media went wild. The world now had two competitors in the battle for energy dominance. Caldwell had officially gone on the offensive, and he had the support of his political allies to back him up. Elon knew this wouldn't be easy. Helios wasn't just another company. It was Caldwell's personal vendetta, and he had the resources to make it a formidable opponent. It was no longer just about technology or ethics. This was personal. The battle between Tesla and Helios escalated into a war of ideologies. Caldwell's company framed itself as the true champion of the people, focusing on localized, decentralized energy solutions. Tesla, on the other hand, continued to push for global solutions with its solar grids and now its new battery technology. The public was divided. Some saw Caldwell's Helios as the future, believing his vision of energy independence was the key to a sustainable world. Others rallied behind Tesla, trusting Elon's mission and his track record of turning radical ideas into realities. The tension was palpable. As the battle raged on, Elon realized that there was only one way to end it. It wasn't about outsmarting Caldwell. It was about showing the world which company could truly make a difference. It was time for the ultimate test. Tesla would face its final showdown with Helios in a global demonstration. One that would prove which company had the vision, the technology, and the heart to lead the future. But the stakes had never been higher. The world was watching, and the outcome of this battle would shape the course of energy innovation for generations to come. What do you think Elon's next move should be? How do you think the showdown between Tesla and Helios will end? Share your thoughts below. The day of the global demonstration had arrived. It was the culmination of years of hard work, innovation, and a battle of wills. The world was waiting to see who would emerge as the leader in sustainable energy, the visionary Elon Musk with his revolutionary Tesla technology, or the upstart Caldwell and his Helios Corporation, promising to disrupt everything Musk had worked for. Tesla had chosen the perfect venue, a sprawling solar-powered campus in the heart of California, where Tesla's solar grid and new energy storage batteries would be put to the ultimate test. The campus was a gleaming testament to what Elon believed the future could look like: clean, sustainable, and powered by innovation. The event was broadcast live across the globe, with millions tuning in. The tension was palpable, and the media was buzzing with anticipation. Caldwell, ever the strategist, had announced that Helios would unveil their new energy independence solution, which would supposedly challenge everything Tesla had accomplished. It was a head-to-head battle of ideologies, technologies, and egos. Elon arrived early, standing quietly on the stage as technicians ran final checks on the systems. His mind was racing, but on the outside, he was calm. The entire fate of Tesla, and perhaps his legacy, was about to unfold. The solar grid that powered the campus was running at full capacity, and the new batteries were ready for their first real-world test. Raj, Ethan, and the rest of the Tesla team were behind the scenes, monitoring the data as the crowd began to fill the auditorium. There was no turning back now. They had prepared for every possible scenario. Tesla was ready. A few miles away, Caldwell was preparing his own demonstration. His camp was filled with secrecy. He had promised a solution that would not only rival Tesla but could potentially change the entire landscape of energy production. No one outside of Helios had any idea what he had in store, but Elon knew one thing for sure: Caldwell would stop at nothing to win. As the camera started rolling, Elon took his place at the podium. He flashed a confident smile, but there was no mistaking the gravity of the moment. The audience fell silent, and the world waited for his first words. "Good morning, everyone," Elon began, his voice steady. "Today, we are witnessing something that will change the future of energy. We've come a long way from the first days of Tesla, and what we've achieved is nothing short of revolutionary. Our solar grids, combined with the new energy storage technology, will bring sustainable power to communities worldwide. We are not just building a company, we are building a future for our children. A future where clean energy is no longer a luxury but a basic human right." A cheer went up from the Tesla supporters in the crowd, but it was short-lived as the camera switched to the other side of the auditorium, where Caldwell's team was setting up. Caldwell stepped onto the stage, his presence commanding the room. He was dressed in a crisp suit, his face hard and determined. The contrast between him and Elon could not have been clearer. Caldwell's look was one of calculated power, while Elon's was one of visionary passion. "Ladies and gentlemen," Caldwell's voice boomed, "today, we are witnessing not just a test of technologies, but a test of values. Helios is built on the foundation of true energy independence. Unlike Tesla, we do not believe in putting all our eggs in one basket. We believe in empowering communities to take control of their energy. Our decentralized solutions are scalable, adaptable, and most importantly, they do not rely on any one company to succeed." The crowd was silent, taking in his words. Elon could feel the shift in the air. Caldwell's argument was appealing. His vision of decentralized energy was a powerful one, and it was clear that his supporters believed in it wholeheartedly. It was now time for the demonstrations to begin. Tesla's team rolled out the first part of their presentation, a live demonstration of the solar grid at work. Elon and his team proudly showcased the technology that powered the campus, with Tesla's batteries storing excess energy that could be redistributed throughout the community. The energy levels were off the charts. Tesla's solar panels were absorbing sunlight at an unprecedented rate, and the new batteries were more efficient than anything the world had seen before. The audience watched in awe as data streamed across the screens, proving the technology's effectiveness. For a moment, it seemed like the entire world could run on this system alone. Then, it was Caldwell's turn. He unveiled Helios' game-changing solution, an entirely new type of solar panel, one that could allegedly be installed at a fraction of the cost of Tesla's and produce more power using a new kind of material. The crowd erupted into applause. It was impressive, no doubt, but there was something about the presentation that felt off, something too polished, too perfect. As the demonstration went on, Tesla's team began to notice something strange. The Helios panels, though powerful, weren't performing as well in the real-world conditions as they had in the tests. The energy output seemed to drop significantly when exposed to the sunlight for extended periods. Elon, ever the perfectionist, watched with a keen eye. He knew something was wrong, but he wasn't sure what. He needed more time to analyze the data, but the crowd was growing restless, and Caldwell was already gearing up for his next move. Just as the audience began to murmur, a sudden alert flashed across Tesla's monitors. One of the Helios panels had malfunctioned. Raj was the first to speak. "The Helios panel, there's an anomaly. The system isn't holding up under pressure." Elon stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with authority. "It looks like Helios' claims might not be as solid as they appear. These tests, these real-world conditions, have exposed a critical flaw in the system. This is what happens when companies promise the world without truly understanding the technology. Caldwell's face tightened, and for the first time, he seemed rattled. His team rushed to fix the malfunction, but the damage had been done. Tesla's technology had passed the ultimate test, while Helios' solution had faltered under pressure. The crowd erupted into applause for Tesla, but Elon knew this battle wasn't over yet. This was only the beginning of the war for the future of energy. With a calm smile, Elon addressed the audience once more. This is just the start. The future of energy is bright, and we are ready to lead the way. Together, we will change the world. As the cameras panned across the crowd, Elon could feel the weight of the moment. He had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The next morning, news outlets across the globe were buzzing with reports on the monumental failure of Caldwell's Helios Corporation. The energy giant had promised a revolutionary solution to the world's energy crisis, only to see its prototype fall short in front of millions. The once cocky Caldwell, who had prided himself on his innovations, was now facing a massive public relations disaster. Elon, however, was not basking in the glow of his victory for long. His phone had been ringing non-stop since the demonstration, with calls from board members, investors, and journalists all eager for his next move. While the world had seen Tesla's success, Elon knew this was just one battle in a much bigger war. Helios was still a force to be reckoned with, and Caldwell, despite his failure, wasn't the kind of person to take this loss lying down. Meanwhile, Caldwell had retreated to his private office, his mind racing with thoughts of revenge. He had spent years building Helios, pouring his soul into creating a decentralized energy future. Now, with his company's credibility in tatters, he knew he had to act fast or risk losing everything. The humiliation from the previous day's demonstration was more than just a public setback. It was a personal affront to his life's work. Caldwell's mind churned with a singular thought. How could he turn this failure into an opportunity? He had underestimated Musk and Tesla, but there was a way forward. If he could find a way to manipulate public perception, he might be able to recover. He wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. Within hours, Caldwell had gathered his closest advisors. As the team settled into the sleek conference room, Caldwell wasted no time getting to the point. Yesterday, we made a huge mistake, Caldwell began, his voice icy. We underestimated Musk. We didn't plan for the pressure. But that ends now. We are not going down like this. One of his advisors, a sharp-eyed woman named Maya, spoke up. But the data is clear. The panels failed under real-world conditions. It's going to be tough to bounce back from that. Listen, Caldwell snapped, a fiery glint in his eyes. We have one last chance to prove ourselves. We're going to unveil a new, improved version of our technology, but this time, we're going to do it in a way Musk never expects. Maya raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? We're going to prove that Helios' failures were due to external factors, not inherent flaws in the system. We'll leak some damaging Tesla data, showing that their system isn't as foolproof as they claim. We'll manipulate the narrative to create doubt. The room fell silent as Caldwell's team processed the plan. It was risky, but Caldwell had never been one to shy away from a challenge. If they could make Musk's technology look unreliable, the world might just turn against Tesla, and in the process, they could salvage their reputation. Back in California, Elon was aware of the growing whispers. Caldwell had already begun a smear campaign, and although Elon had expected it, the timing of it took him by surprise. The media, always eager for drama, latched onto the rumors, and soon, Tesla was on the defensive. Elon, have you seen the latest headlines? Raj asked, walking into Elon's office with a tablet in hand. Caldwell's claiming that Tesla's energy storage units aren't as stable as we've led people to believe. They're suggesting we're overstating the safety of our technology. Elon rubbed his temples, frustration creeping into his voice. I knew it was coming. Caldwell doesn't play fair. But we've got to stay focused. We know the truth about our tech. We've got to be transparent, more than ever. Tesla's public relations team quickly went into crisis mode, issuing statements and providing independent testing data to refute Caldwell's claims. Still, the damage was done. The media continued to play up the possibility of failure in Tesla's systems, and a small percentage of the public began to question whether they were putting too much faith in one man's vision. While the media war raged on, Elon decided it was time to take the fight directly to Caldwell. He needed to confront his rival face-to-face, to put an end to the games and expose Caldwell for what he truly was, a businessman willing to sacrifice truth for personal gain. Elon arranged for a private meeting with Caldwell. They would meet at the Tesla headquarters, where both men could speak freely without the media's prying eyes. It was a risky move, but Elon knew it was necessary to clear the air once and for all. The day of the meeting arrived, and Elon stood in the conference room, waiting for Caldwell to arrive. His mind was calm, but his emotions were charged with purpose. This was no longer about technology. This was about integrity. If Caldwell wanted to play dirty, Elon would show him what it meant to fight for the truth. When Caldwell finally walked through the door, his demeanor was as cold as ever. He gave Elon a curt nod, but didn't extend his hand for a handshake. Elon didn't take offense. He was prepared for this. "You know, Elon, I never thought it would come to this," Caldwell said, his voice tinged with bitterness. "You've won the battle, but I'm not giving up. I'll find a way to beat you." Elon leaned forward, his gaze steady. "You can keep fighting, Caldwell, but this is bigger than you or me. It's about the future of energy, the planet, and our children. If you keep playing these games, you're only delaying the inevitable. The truth will come out, no matter how many lies you tell." Caldwell's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken animosity. It was clear that this rivalry wasn't going to end anytime soon, but in that moment, Elon realized that it didn't matter. He had what mattered most: integrity, vision, and the support of those who believed in Tesla's mission. As Caldwell turned and walked out of the room, Elon remained seated, his mind already turning to the next steps. This war was far from over, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to let Caldwell or anyone else derail the future of clean energy. Days passed, and the media frenzy surrounding Tesla and Helios intensified. Caldwell's smear campaign had started to lose its traction, but he wasn't giving up. He was determined to bring Tesla down, no matter the cost. Elon, on the other hand, was focused on something more important: the future. The tension between the two companies had reached a boiling point. Helios, despite its setbacks, had made a bold move, announcing a live demonstration of their revamped energy technology. It was an ambitious gamble, one that would either restore Caldwell's credibility or drive his company further into irrelevance. Elon knew that this was it, the moment that could either cement Tesla as the undisputed leader in clean energy or send shockwaves through the entire industry. Caldwell was about to take the stage again, but this time, he wasn't going to play by the same rules. Elon sat in his office, looking out over the Tesla campus. He had been through countless battles, but something about this one felt different. This wasn't just about technology, it was about vision. He wasn't going to let Caldwell's lies tarnish the future they were all fighting for. "We've got this," Raj said as he entered the room, breaking Elon from his thoughts. "The team's ready. We've got our countermeasures in place. But this could get ugly. Are you sure about going public with the new plan?" Elon nodded. "It's the only way. We need to show the world what Helios really is. Not just their tech, but their approach. This is about doing things the right way, not the easy way. Caldwell's been playing dirty, but we're going to play clean." Raj didn't look convinced. "You're sure this won't backfire?" "Raj," Elon said, his voice steady, "sometimes you have to take a risk to make a difference. If we don't step up now, the world might just buy into Caldwell's lies. We're in this for the long game." Hours later, the two companies stood face to face on a grand stage. The world watched, and the stakes were higher than ever. Caldwell had once again gathered a massive crowd, eager to see the grand unveiling of Helios' new energy breakthrough. But this time, Elon Musk wasn't just a spectator. He was here to challenge everything. As Caldwell began his presentation, he stood confidently before the massive crowd. He had been through too much to let this opportunity slip away. His new energy panels were touted to be the solution to the world's energy crisis, and today, he would prove it to the world. "Ladies and gentlemen," Caldwell said, his voice booming over the speakers, "we stand at the edge of a new era in energy. Helios has risen from the ashes, and what you're about to see will change the world. Our energy solution is the future." The crowd cheered as a sleek, futuristic display of panels lit up the stage. Caldwell walked proudly to the center, gesturing toward the display. But as the audience's applause died down, a sudden shift in the atmosphere became palpable. Elon Musk had entered the arena, walking calmly toward the stage, his presence commanding attention. The murmurs spread quickly through the crowd. Caldwell's face stiffened. "What are you doing here, Musk?" "I came to see for myself," Elon said, his voice calm yet filled with purpose. "I've been hearing a lot about your revolutionary tech. I want to see it in action." Caldwell sneered. "Well, you'll be disappointed, Musk. Helios is the future of energy. You're living in the past." Elon stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "I've seen your technology, Caldwell. I've seen the data. It's not the future, it's a fantasy. You've been misleading the world for too long." The crowd grew silent, the tension palpable. Caldwell's eyes flashed with anger, but he refused to back down. "You really think you can stand here and discredit me?" Caldwell retorted. "You're just jealous. You've been beaten before, and you'll be beaten again." Elon's expression remained unshaken. "This isn't about me, Caldwell. This is about the world. People deserve to know the truth, and I'm here to make sure they do." With that, Elon turned to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, let me show you something that Helios doesn't want you to see." In that moment, Tesla's engineers activated a large screen that displayed a detailed analysis of Helios technology. The data was clear. While Caldwell's company had made significant progress, their energy panels were still prone to critical failure under specific conditions. The long-term sustainability of their solution was uncertain at best. The crowd gasped. Caldwell's face turned red with rage. "You're lying. That data is fabricated." Elon calmly raised his hand. "No, Caldwell. This data is the truth. We've tested your technology in real-world conditions. This isn't a smear campaign. This is transparency. If you want to save face, you should start being honest with the world." The crowd began murmuring, and a few people in the audience exchanged worried glances. Caldwell's company, once the shining beacon of innovation, was now under intense scrutiny. His future hung in the balance. As Elon walked off the stage, he felt a sense of quiet victory. It wasn't the end of the battle, but it was a significant step forward. The world was starting to see through the facade that Caldwell had built, and Elon's mission was clearer than ever. It was about progress, integrity, and a brighter future for all. The aftermath of the showdown had reverberated across the globe. Tesla's triumph over Caldwell and Helios wasn't just about technology. It was about integrity, transparency, and the unwavering belief that the future could be better if only people were brave enough to challenge the status quo. Days after the dramatic confrontation, Elon stood at the helm of his company, his thoughts focused not just on the victory, but on the long road ahead. Tesla had won the battle, but the war for the future of energy was far from over. The world was watching, waiting to see what would come next. Raj entered Elon's office, his face reflecting the quiet pride that had settled over the team. "We did it," he said, a grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. Elon didn't smile. His expression was intense, thoughtful. "Yes, but we can't rest. There's more to do." "Of course," Raj replied, but there was a palpable sense of relief in his voice. "But today, we get to celebrate. For once, we've got the upper hand." Elon nodded, then stood up, pacing in front of the large windows of his office, overlooking the Tesla campus. He could hear the hum of the machines in the distance, a constant reminder of the work ahead. The company had weathered storms, both literal and metaphorical, but the fight for clean energy was far from over. "Raj, this is bigger than us." "It's bigger than Tesla," Elon said, turning to face him. "This is about the future of the planet. About ensuring that generations to come will have access to clean, sustainable energy. We can't slow down. We can't take our foot off the gas." Raj's grin faded as he listened, understanding the weight of Elon's words. "I get it. But what about Caldwell? He's not just going to slink away, is he?" Elon's eyes narrowed. "No, he's not. But that's not our problem. He'll have to answer for his lies, but we have a job to do. We have to keep pushing forward. Meanwhile, across the globe, Caldwell was grappling with the fallout. His reputation had been irreparably damaged, and his company was in jeopardy. Investors were pulling out, and the media painted him as the villain. Yet, even in the face of mounting adversity, Caldwell wasn't ready to concede defeat. He was vengeful, his obsession with winning driving him to make reckless decisions. But as Caldwell worked tirelessly behind closed doors, it was clear that the once mighty empire he had built was crumbling. He had underestimated not just Elon Musk but the power of truth. And now, the truth was out there, and there was no turning back. Back at Tesla, the atmosphere was one of cautious optimism. While they celebrated their victory, there was an understanding that the road ahead would be filled with challenges. They had fought hard for their place in the industry, and there would always be more battles to fight. Elon met with his team in the conference room, where plans were already in motion for the next phase of Tesla's expansion. The focus was no longer just on battling competitors. It was on revolutionizing how the world used energy. Solar power, electric vehicles, and even space exploration. Elon's vision was bigger than ever, and Tesla was at the forefront of it all. "We've proven we can take on the giants," Elon said, looking around the room at his team. "Now we need to change the world. We need to build not just a company, but a movement." The room was filled with nods of agreement. The team knew that they were part of something bigger than themselves, something that would leave a lasting impact on the planet and the future of humanity. Weeks passed, and the dust from the battle with Helios settled. Elon's vision for Tesla continued to evolve. With the success of their latest energy innovations, the company was beginning to expand in ways that no one could have predicted. Tesla was becoming synonymous with clean energy, and the world was starting to embrace the idea that a sustainable future wasn't just a dream. It was within reach. But even as the world moved forward, there were still moments of doubt, moments when the weight of it all seemed overwhelming. Elon had always been the type to push forward relentlessly, but now, he found himself reflecting more often than he ever had before. One evening, as he sat alone in his office, looking out at the city lights twinkling below, Elon thought about the path that had brought him here. From the early days of Tesla, when no one believed in him, to the recent battles that had tested his resolve, he had come a long way. He thought about Krish, the young genius who had believed in the vision when others had doubted. He thought about all the people who had stood by him, the engineers, the dreamers, the people who refused to settle for anything less than greatness. But most of all, he thought about the future. The world had changed, but it wasn't just Tesla that would shape the future. It was all of humanity. And if he had to play his part in leading the charge toward that future, he would. The world was watching, but Elon Musk wasn't done yet. There would be more challenges, more obstacles. But with each challenge, there would be a stronger resolve, a clearer vision, and an unwavering commitment to creating a better, more sustainable future for all. As the final moments of the year approached, Elon Musk stood tall, ready for whatever the future had in store. What's next for Elon Musk and Tesla? The journey is far from over. Share your thoughts, and let us know what you think Elon's next big move will be in the comments below.